Hey there, I'm here to announce the new Duck Bundle. That's right, the Diggity Duck Bundle 3 is now available. We have taken the audio from this year's Duck Fest and packaged all of it up, nearly 6 hours of live shows. They're very fun, and you can get all of it for $10 up to any amount you want, because like every Duck Bundle, all of the proceeds from this are going to a charity. This year it is Raíces, an organization that provides legal support for immigrants and refugees at the border. So go to Duckfeed.tv/duckbundle to get the audio and have a good time and support a good cause. Thank you.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a Games Club podcast.
And this week we are talking about Fire Emblem, The Sacred Stones, which is a tactical RPG developed by Intelligent Systems and published by Nintendo for the Game Boy Advance in 2004.
Yeah, and this is an executive produced episode, so big thanks to Ben Sapatka.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. And this is our first Fire Emblem game as well. The second entry of the series to come to America, but this is a thing Nintendo has been doing for a while.
Yep. Yeah, this is a weird, so, 2/3 of, basically the 3 parts of me preparing for this episode was, 1/3 playing the game, 1/3 kind of doing research looking into the series, which is a series that I'd always, if you asked me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I like that series, but I'd really only played 3 games
right.
In it. And then the other third was kind of looking into the kind of history and legacy and fandom of this game, which is a real cult series, like a cult classic.
Yeah.
And this one, the second entry to come to America, this is the one I'd played, Awakening, and then the one before this, the first GBA one.
Just Fire Emblem, although it is called the Blazing Blade or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly it. Those are the 3 I had played. This is the second one that people suggest as an entry point, and the one people suggest as an entry point often in like Fire Emblem Classic.
Yes.
It is a weirdly bisected series, which we'll talk about.
Yeah. So because of of that ravenous fan base that we know of, because of the intricacy of this game, I want to lay down at the front here that we know you're very passionate about it. However, we are generally novices. I've only played, most of the Blazing Blade, prior to this. There are just things that we're going to miss, and that's kind of going to have to be okay.
There's stuff that we're definitely going to miss, and there are things that I have taken, some steps to try to understand about it, and there are just some things that are an appeal that there are parts of it that I don't get. There are parts of it that I definitely do get. I just want to do the blanket caveat. Some people get mad at us when we do this. Some people get mad when we don't. So I'm just going to err on the side of doing it. None of this is personal. Like, there are design decisions that are inherent in this game and this section of the series that I don't like. Like, they're just things I don't like. And I have just, like, straight up asked a lot of people, like, hey, what is cool about this to you?
Yeah.
So I can speak to it, but I don't feel the same way.
Yeah.
So I just don't want anyone, least of all Ben, to feel bad about it, that I didn't come away digging some of the things that are what is special about this series.
Yeah.
So we're going to miss some stuff. We're also going, and some of it is like explicitly esoteric and kind of hidden. Like there's a degree of min-maxing possible in this series and this entry specifically that I did not engage with.
Right.
My time on Earth is finite. So I was not about to grind up supports or look up how to optimize supports. And you can make an argument that if I had, some of the frustrations might have been assuaged. You can also make the argument that like that kind of time investment and looking for outside knowledge from the game is unreasonable ask.
Yes.
To get to those parts. So, I can see both arguments. So we can speak to some of those intricacies, but I can say I didn't fully engage with them.
No, I got the ones that I got on accident, and that felt cool and good. The thing about this is there are enough moving parts here that when there are collisions, it leads to something interesting, and it's like, oh, they accounted for that. That's cool. So this is rich with incident in a way that is kind of unexpected. Like story stuff can happen on the battlefield, which is pretty cool.
It's a weird thing. Like we'll talk about this as part of a later generality too.
Yeah.
But the idea of confining everything, there's kind of like almost a running list of things I have that I think are just really weird decisions. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know how I feel about them. And one of them is having everything happen on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to, but doing the character development, doing your shopping, doing your arena training, doing any of that stuff all within the battle interface is a strange decision.
Yeah.
Like it was a weird thing to sit down and be trying to win this battle, but also being like, I need to make sure these two characters talk about their inability to do archery with each other.
Yeah.
Like, and it takes a turn. It's a resource. It's not something that just happens. It's not something without cost.
Right.
It's something you do instead of advancing the game state. And one of the things I saw when I was looking up people's takes about this, I found a YouTuber whose name I can't recall right at this moment, who talked about how Fire Emblem games are about balancing your immediate game with the long game. So it is about beating the battle, but it's also about training and building your army and doing all those things. And the interesting part of the game is balancing those two tensions against each other. And I think there's something to that. It didn't get its hooks into me as like a particularly compelling way to do it.
Yeah.
Like I did not spend a lot of time focusing on that long game because it felt like it required knowledge from outside the game to kind of min-max it.
Right.
Like I didn't just, I still trained up units. Like I didn't just use the most powerful unit and move through it because the game is designed to harshly punish that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
But I also did not like it's like they're weird. They're long but designed to be replayed. Kind of like almost infinitely. Like that's something that the fandom loves about the game. And I had the sense that like the ideal Sacred Stones experience is your second playthrough after you played it once, and I just didn't want to play it again.
Yeah,
afterwards,
I could see that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that stuff we're going to get into. And as there's just kind of a blanket thing too, and this is largely like I will bring this weakness to the table. This isn't on Cole. But when I play, like I play this in bed on my 3DS Ambassador. I don't want to brag, but I am an ambassador.
Ooh.
And the
excuse me, Your Highness.
Thank you. But I didn't take notes. So there are things of this that like run together pretty hard in my head.
Yeah.
Missions that felt samey, and even characters that like get a kind of a sketch line in the beginning, but because I didn't develop their supports, I didn't get a really strong sense of them. And there's 1,000 characters in this game,
right?
So there's things that I definitely forgot and missed and stuff. So we're gonna spend a lot of time on the generalities and kind of how the game works. And then when we get to the individual battles, it's gonna move at a much faster clip.
Yeah.
Even though with the statement that there is some pretty cool map design decisions being made in the game. A lot of times I did not appreciate them until after they were done, or I saw something that contrasted with them. And it is hard for me to speak to at that individual level. It's much easier for me to speak to that in like a general sense.
Yeah. So let's get into it. In this game, you play as the two remaining heirs of this medieval kingdom, Renee, and you're commanding this army to fight back against an evil empire, Grado, that has gone on the march.
Yes. Yep. Has broken bad.
Yes.
And you'll spend most of your time in this game, as we mentioned, in combat, which is a tactics-based, turn-based, tile-based grid map.
Yes.
similar to other tactical RPGs you played, where each unit has a movement and attack range. And generally, you move and then you attack and your turn is over. There's some twist to that, but generally, each unit, straight up D&D gets a move and an attack. A major and a minor action.
Yes. Your side always gets initiative. Everybody on your team goes whatever order you want. It is move, then attack, and then the enemy goes in the same way.
Yep.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really like about this game, because I didn't come away from this particular entry loving this really, but I want to make sure I call out the things I appreciate, is how transparent.
Oh, yeah.
It is. I think this is really great. There's like shades of Into the Breach in that, right? When you attack, you see your unit's kind of stat and equipment matched up against your enemies and see what that attack will look like.
Right.
You'll see the damage that you're due, what your hit percentage is, what your critical chance is ahead of time.
Yeah.
I think critical chance in this game undercuts this foreknowledge quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
But having that information be public and just before you commit, I think is a really cool choice.
Yes, that way you don't waste a turn when you're not aware of an item that enemy is carrying. Although you can just inspect that enemy and see what they've got. Yep. But if you're going to go up and attack and you're only going to do 2 damage, well, that's dumb because you just left yourself wide open. You can just back out of the action and then move somebody else up to attack that guy who is, going to be better suited for it. Which, give me that information. Like, let me agonize over those choices without agonizing over the results. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. It's really great. And it doesn't feel like there's an awful lot of 95% chance to hit, then you miss. Like, there's not like a lot of XCOM kind of stuff happening here.
Yeah. The odds seemed pretty legit in it. It does, at some point during this, we'll have to talk about the role of critical hits in this game in general, because something like that can have a 10% chance. And yes, the 10% is really a 10%, but I've had, a 10 show up on a D10 enough times to know that happens.
Yeah.
And they are uniformly devastating in this game in both directions in a way that plays into the meta, which I want to talk about a little bit later. But just, yes, the odds follow the odds, but a 90% chance when your unit is on the line is not good enough, right. I guess, to attack with confidence, really. Yeah.
Are critical hits always an instant kill? For me, that was the case, but
no, they're not meant to be.
Yeah.
But in practice, they often are.
Yeah.
In this,
there were a handful of times where I was, 40 minutes into a fight, and the enemy procced a critical hit on Erica or Ephraim, and boop, I got to start it over. Well, fuck me, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that fuck me, I guess feeling.
Yeah.
Which I get, we got to get through some more basics too, but it's a big problem I have with this game.
Yeah.
There are critical hits that are instant deaths. You can get an assassin, is one of the trainable classes, and they have a chance. I think it's 50% on regular units and 25% on bosses to do an instant death when they get a crit.
Nice.
Which is a pretty cool build that I read about more than I used.
Yeah.
Because I ended up making my little guy an assassin, but I did not. He was also not super strong, so he was largely benched until eventually he died. I think he's one of my units who died.
Oh yeah.
When you attack, you get this little cutaway screen and this little music sting that is pretty great. Like the image of this, the graphics of this game in general are appealing and beautiful.
Yeah.
And the attack animations are amazing.
They're so good. I love the spells.
Yeah. The spells look so good. They do these, the frames, the action frames really well. The keyframes are just absolutely just feel best in class for me.
Yeah.
To this stuff. It just looks so cool.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's a big part of the appeal of this is that even when you're doing, you're just going up and pressing a button, it feels pretty cool what you're doing. There's a sense of kinesthetics to it, even if you're not actually directly controlling your avatar.
Yeah. And it does, when that little one-on-one pops up, you're kind of holding your breath, seeing what the result's going to be. Is he going to hit?
Yeah.
Is it going to crit? Things like that. It was a shame. For the interest of time, I had to turn this off. About halfway through the game. It's cool that it lets you do that though.
Yeah. And this early as well.
Yeah.
Because one of the things too, when we kind of get to final summations or what have you, is that a lot of the things that frustrated me about this are things that they patched out of the series.
Yeah.
So one of the hallmarks of the series is the weapon triangle, which is a rock, paper, scissors hierarchy with weapons, with swords to axes to spears to swords. There's a magic version of this as well. Things. One of the things that I didn't really realize until going into this is how like not all consuming this is.
Yeah.
Like it makes a difference, mostly in terms of to hit ratio, but the damage is not as big a difference as I thought it would be. It's not Pokemon.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not Pokemon. I think that for me, I was conflating this with a similar system that is in Advance Wars.
Sure.
And it feels like what is it? It's like, tanks versus infantry versus artillery. I feel like there it is way more pronounced. Here, the advantages feel much more marginal. And I found myself kind of not really playing to the matchups as much.
No, like if I could, I would. But that's a fun tactical realization, right? Like when I realized, I can actually send in this unit that's not ideal, but actually has a pretty good chance.
Yeah.
That was a fun moment of realization.
Yeah.
And I think I was also conflating it with Advance Wars, because if this was straight up Pokemon or Advance Wars, like I would dislike that. Like, I am apologize for Intelligent Systems like stands out there, but like I really loathe the Advance Wars games and don't want to do them for the show.
No,
I think those games, like I think that those games are like 75 move puzzle games where you don't know that you're fucked until move 50.
Right.
Like there are correct ways to play those maps, and just sussing those out and constantly reloading to get there is really unappealing to me.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned about research of this is that's like how a good number of the audience for these games play them.
Ooh.
As well.
That's I don't get that.
It's not for me. Like I understand it. I respect, if everyone has their own fun, makes their own fun. If I were playing this game this way, and we weren't doing it for the show, I would have quit.
Yeah.
If I felt like, making, a mistake losing a unit was a fail condition on hardware where I have to start the map over again.
Yeah.
And I couldn't save state. That would have been it.
Yeah.
For me, I think that sounds like torture to me. So
does the GBA emulator on the 3DS have save states built in?
No. It doesn't even have sleep mode. If you close the GBA, it doesn't go to sleep.
That's fucking janky, man.
It's so weird. I don't know why it is.
Yeah.
But no, it does not have save states. So I played this without save states, which meant I rolled with the punches, which we'll talk about when we start talking about the kind of death economy in this. More like our economy.
The death economy, capitalism, am I right?
Yeah, a little more Reaganomics.
I can't believe we spent the whole episode talking about that.
Yeah. Kingdom of Reneanomics. Yeah, like...
So your character's individual actions, they're determined by the equipment that they carry, which in turn is determined by their class. Class also confers some abilities that get pretty esoteric, but the idea is like, hey, you're a monk, you can cast light magic spells, you load up on those books, you load up on some items, and you go forward and do what you can with it.
Well, and an interesting thing about this is like one of the things that we're going to get to in the generalities about this is what separates this from other tactics games.
Yeah.
And one of the things is that, there are significant differences between classes in this.
Yes.
They are less significant than tactics games that I'm used to. There is less of a difference between two units in this game than there are, than a knight and a mediator in Final Fantasy Tactics, right? Like the fact that it is so equipment based, the fact that it is kind of shunted into threes. Yeah. You don't get utility magic until like roughly halfway through the game. Really, like everything is a healer attack. Like it is very simple.
Yeah.
So upgrading a unit, like oftentimes it would mean, this unit that used swords can now use an axe as well.
Right.
And some different stat ceilings and stat growths, which we'll talk about, but it's not like a night and day difference. Yeah. Which is like an interesting kind of, I guess conundrum to it, because it means that, like I didn't feel as cool upgrading things in this. Like it was neat to see my guy grow a fucking horse between his legs. Just like, oh my god. Become like a weird 6-legged like centaur thing. And that was like, and it was useful. It's like, my guy can get around more. But I was expecting something like, again, like kind of night and day, like the kind of changes that happen in XCOM or Final Fantasy Tactics, or something like that, where it's like, man, this totally different verb set, completely different utility. Didn't really happen. Like the changes are very subtle.
Yeah.
in terms of class changes and upgrades, with a couple of exceptions. Like there's a couple of utility classes. You eventually get some utility spells.
Yeah. The thing that I found to be, that most informed my unit loadout was movement range and attack range, honestly.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because, just depending on what kind of armor that class wears, you have some that can move, forward, and you have some that can move down near all the way across the map. And I wanted to have a good mixture of those, because movement comes with trade-offs as well.
Like I just did, a general mix, like tried my best to do a balanced party at any given point, and it got me through the game.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that is the min-maxed, correct way to play, but that was the way that, I went through it.
It got you through the game?
Got me through the game.
Yep.
So, yeah. Every piece of equipment has a limited number of uses, which means that you are looking to replace those by new weapons, on lookout for better weapons, and then you also end up with some, very good weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like it's very easy to fall into too good to use syndrome.
Yeah.
With this game, if I didn't know how many chapters I had left, I don't know that I would, again, that playing into that, this is designed to be played twice for the ideal experience thing, or without outside help, because you get at some point you get a staff that heals everyone on the map, all your people.
Right.
There's 3 uses. And I'm like, this is really, really good. If I thought I might have 10 levels left, I would never use this.
Yes.
It's only because I know I only have 2 or 3 left. I can't remember exactly where you get it, that I was like, this is okay.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of, and it also leads to kind of an economic churn. You are replacing things.
Yeah.
With consistency.
I found myself subbing out different units because I didn't feel like backtracking across the map to stock up on whatever that person carried, things like that.
Yep.
Which ended up being fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is also fine. Okay. Let's get into kind of the way that the tactics kind of play out in this thing, because the thing that is unique about this, and again, a thing I really liked, is that I think that there's a different level of zoom to this than there is, in other tactics games.
Yeah. Clarify that for me.
So it is, Final Fantasy Tactics and XCOM are skirmishes.
Yeah. Short
skirmishes. Here, you are dealing with a larger play area and doing something between army tactics and unit tactics.
Yeah.
So the first note you have here in this next section, talking about defensive play where opposing troops can't move through each other. Putting someone, oftentimes I would move a character into an area like a choke point just to cut off an enemy advance.
Yeah.
It wasn't to with the eventual goal of killing that enemy or to fight or anything. It was just, let's put my tank here to protect my weaker units, that have the movement to get around this choke point, to get to things, but I need to make sure the enemy can't get to them before they can. That is a slightly higher level, more of an RTS level concern.
Yeah.
That makes us play not quite between a tactics game and an RTS game, but a little closer to RTS than I'm used to.
Yeah, I dig that quite a bit. Additionally, because new enemy units, sometimes friendly units, mostly enemy units, can come onto the map at particular turns during
constantly.
Yeah.
Near the end of the game.
Yeah.
Just an unending stream of monsters. Here they come.
Oftentimes that will be behind your main force. So while in the early game you may, understandably be playing okay, we are just going to always be moving everybody forward. If you're strong, you're on the front, and if you're weak, you're in the back. In later maps, that's not necessarily going to fly because you have to split up your party. Admittedly, your party can be up to 18 people at one point, but you've got to guard your rear. Because other stuff, enemies are going to be coming up behind you as well. And so defensive play works in as a factor there too.
Yeah. And they do a kindness there because reinforcements will only ever come at the end of the enemy's turn. They'll never come at the beginning of the enemy's turn where they show up and also get a turn to act.
Yeah.
So you always have a chance to kind of scramble and recover. If such a thing happens, which I think is good.
Yeah. Something that I like is that generally the decisions that you're making are pretty simple. This is, again, zoomed down to a level that feels a little bit unique to me compared to other, tactics games that we've played and covered. And that simplicity actually allows you to do a little bit of, what's that word in fighting games where you anticipate what they're going to do? Yomi? Yeah, do a little bit of Yomi on the AI where it's all right, I really need this enemy to overextend himself. Let me send up somebody who's kind of weak with a healer behind them to lure them out and get them into a disadvantaged position, or use that to like understand. You can basically set up little traps to lure people into advantageous positions. You know, so like the simplicity worked for me, you know, just as I was making my own decisions, but also just kind of like let me wrap my head around the, you know, the way things were going to work out on an enemy turn as well.
Yeah, I appreciated that as well. I think that like, you know, definitely ended up doing kind of, so that's the level of tactics, is like leaving a unit for bait.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not specifically about your verb set.
Right.
Like as the game moved on, I came to feel that a wider verb set would actually make that better, not worse.
Mm-hmm.
Like when eventually you get the like teleport spells, I was like, this is wonderful. This should have been here in map 1.
Right.
Like this is so cool. It allows us to be so much more deep tactically that I can move a unit out of danger instantly.
Yeah.
Why don't I have more things to do? Like I ended up like, there was like an arc to the simplicity where I started out really appreciating it, and then by the end of the game really kind of resenting it.
Yeah, that's true for literally every single strategy game for me, though. Where like no matter what's there, I'm just gonna like we're gonna get to the mission that is like survive for 45 minutes and fuck you.
Yeah. I like strategy games in the end. Like I love strategy games. So like to me, I have not had that. I don't have that feeling. Like the simplicity of something like Into the Breach, like I think serves it throughout the entire game. Mm-hmm. Part of it is just an Into the Breach run takes an hour and a half.
Right.
You know, part of this is that this was like, you know, because it's a hard game and because I was playing it on hardware, and as much as I tried to roll with deaths, there are characters that are game overs when they die, or characters I couldn't lose.
Yeah.
You know, this ended up like the how long to beat on this game, not accurate.
No,
like this was a long time investment. And by the end it was like, man, I just like, on one hand, I just need to get through this and like beat it because I'm ready to be done with this. And on the other hand, like, boy, I wish I had more options to make that easier and more fun.
Right.
You know, than just attack, stand, you know, rescue, a couple spells, you know, a couple utility spells. Like your verb set by the end of this game is as limited as any tactics game I can imagine. Mm-hmm. You know, rescuing units, which I mentioned just there, is really important. That allows a unit to suck up another unit, to take them off the map and drop them off somewhere. This is how you're going to turn your horse troops and your like Pegasus troops into basically like troop transports.
Like APC. Yeah.
Totally. Like it is a way to get your really high defense, low move characters into position.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of turns to do this. Like the move economy is not great for it, but the a lot of times like enemies stay still or move towards you very slowly. They don't seem to follow the terrain or like know about the terrain rules. So they will sometimes just really creep towards you at an absolute snail's pace, giving you all the time in the world. It's
really strange how they like they are not motivated by goals like you are on most maps. Like enemies straight up have aggro radiuses.
Yeah. Their AI is very strange, and it once you get it, you can manipulate it, as you mentioned in like the last point, which is cool. It just, you know, it makes for, you know, because if you have to pick somebody up, drop them off, and then move back to pick somebody else up, that's 3 whole turns, you know, unless you have like a dancer on the screen, you know, who can juice that a little bit. So that's a lot, you know, and the enemy's just kind of sticking in their place, or just like, I'm walking across a mountain at 1 tile at a time,
right? You
know, for 7 turns, just gives you space to do these kind of long-term maneuvers.
Yeah.
You know, from time to time.
But it lets you save emergencies, lets you mobilize. You know, it's a very dramatic moment when somebody is like on the ropes. It's like, all right, we need to get them off the map.
Yeah. It was basically the early game was just Seth coming through and rescuing. People.
Should we talk about Seth now?
We should talk about Seth and this game does not do it like the series does, but I took the opportunity of, because this is probably the only old Fire Emblem game I'm going to play. Learning about the series. Seth is like an archetype for the series. There are 2 types of, you get characters in these. It is typical of the series to give you a very strong unit initially. In this game, it's Seth. So he's pre-promoted, which means he's already in his advanced class. His stats are really good. In previous games to this one and other games, these are devious, like vile traps.
They have no growth.
They have a specific name. I can't remember what it is, but they are meant to be this weird experience suck for you. Like it's a mean-spirited mechanic. I do not like it. Like, the idea is you have a character that is very tempting to use because he's powerful, but if you do, fuck you, he sucked up all the experience, and you have a finite experience in the game, amount of experience in the game, just play it again.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know this little trick. Like, we tricked you. I think that's a really vile thing philosophically.
Yeah.
This game avoids it, luckily, because Seth is an exception. Apparently, he's a rarity in the series in that he starts very powerful and has decent growths.
Right.
We'll talk about growths at some point. I have very strong feelings about growths in this game.
You and my dermatologist. Growths.
Yep. It is. That's me.
Yeah.
But yeah, Seth is your beef boy, who basically, like, solo Seth runs are a thing.
Yeah.
And is considered, because he'll gain so many levels. There are people online who consider a solo Seth run easier than playing the game normally.
Yes. Additionally, like, the primary challenge run that I found was just like, get rid of Seth, don't use him, kill him. Then people say, oh, that rebalances the game.
Like TG Sid, basically, in Final Fantasy Tactics, except you start. He's one of your first 2 units. He's not something you get in Chapter 4.
Right.
So
yeah.
Let's talk about terrain.
Let's do it. Terrain's cool. Each map tile has a different terrain type. A lot of them are just like, no, here's cobblestones or here's grass, but there are like forests and mountains and things like that, all of which affect movement and hit chances. There are also, like forts that you can rest on, some of which will heal you at the end of your turn, which is pretty cool. And all of this just kind of shapes the field of play quite literally. You want to be attacking from a forest. You want to be attacking from a fort.
Yeah. Yep. Or defending
Yes.
from one. Like, if you have to have a squishy unit go up to the front lines, park them on a forest.
Yes.
They'll be much less likely to be hit at this point. And then with your squishy unit, the thing I didn't learn until, like, kind of shockingly late into the game is that flying units are not affected by terrain.
Right.
Which I just kind of thought, the upside of it, obviously, like, they're not affected by terrain because they're not slowed down by it. But I didn't think that they would also lose the benefit.
Right. Yeah.
Which is, to my detriment.
Yeah. Different terrain types also throw a wrench in the viability of cavalry units. People who are on horses, they can move quite a bit, but they are slowed down more by forests than everybody else. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, again, just adding a little bit more complexity onto this. And you mentioned this before, like, the map design in this game is really good.
Yeah.
I found.
I think so. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They do, they know what they're doing.
Right.
In that respect. And there's a lot of thoughtfulness put into, where a reinforcement is going to come. Like, will they be able to get to you? Will you be able to get to them easily?
Yeah.
So that stuff is actually pretty solid across the board.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see this take on it because it's the kind of thing that would be done in Final Fantasy Tactics with elevation. It'd be the kind of thing done in XCOM with cover.
Right.
And it's still those same kind of considerations are made. They're just, instead it's playing the odds.
Yes.
Yeah.
So certain kinds of maps are going to have buildings or villages, be it in a town or be it in the countryside, where you can actually go and visit to get items or intel. Generally worth doing this. Even if you do just get like a little bit of dialogue, it's generally helpful. But this is a way, this is one of the primary ways that you get like upgrade materials that'll boost your people's classes.
And it's just very strange to have your, like, essentially what would be a town NPC conversation, have that happen on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Like, it leads to some very strange, like, immersion breaking to me. Like, if okay, this person is, the prince of this kingdom, the archer prince of this kingdom is trapped in this building and the army is surrounding them. I need to rescue them. But the actual correct thing to do is send some units over to these houses that are on the other side of the map to talk to them to get upgrade stuff. It's a little weird. Like, it plays into the way that you do everything on the battlefield. I think is a really strange choice. I don't think it's like a Vorpal problem.
No, it's just something you have to get used to.
I think I don't prefer it. I think it mostly breaks my immersion. I think it is silly. To do so.
Does this continue to happen in stuff from Awakening on? I know you've played Awakening, but
I played Awakening. I really liked Awakening. I don't remember.
Okay.
I bought that when it came out. So I was like 4 apartments ago.
Yeah.
So it's quite an old game at this point, and I don't recall. I still have it. Like I've thought about picking it up and replaying it in the wake of this and seeing if I changed or Fire Emblem changed. But everything I've like, again, trying to do this like almost meta research, to kind of dip my toe in a very passionate fandom.
Yeah.
Shows that like Fire Emblem actually changed like a lot of these things.
Yeah. At the, at the risk of overgeneralizing on something I don't know about, cold.text, I guess. I think that the kind of like the single modality problem here in Fire Emblem Classic, or at the tail end of Fire Emblem Classic, let's say, is just kind of a result of like the battle screen is all that they had when the series started, and everything just happened in the battle. Fire Emblem Gaiden and this in particular add in a world map where this stuff could happen. You could revisit towns and go to a menu that sends you to those individual houses or whatever. But because everything happening in the battle modality was a tradition, they didn't see a reason to break out of it until they shook off a bunch of other stuff later on in the series.
Well, they
is
had
my
to.
understanding. Yeah.
Like tradition is a really weird watchword for this series and its fandom, because like when we talk about Fire Emblem Classic versus kind of new Fire Emblem Classic, that is a fairly stark divide. And the series, like I'm sure this is jumping ahead, but that's fine. Yep. This series like almost died. Like it was Nintendo's like, hey, we're going to stop doing these if you don't actually sell some copies. And they did so by making Awakening, which made a bunch of changes that like old school fans, a lot of them don't like. Some of them are fine with, but a lot of them don't like, including turning off things that to me are just bizarre design decisions that I'm really surprised survived as long as they did.
Yep.
Like that are tradition, they're like bits of esoterica that the fandom had latched onto that really kind of found some affection for, but just coming into it and just from my perspective, it ended up being deeply irritating.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that when we start talking about character growth, and we'll talk about, crit percentages and stuff. But they got rid of a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
So this is a tradition, like doing it in the battle screen, like video games had come out by this point. They knew that they could do a menu or a town map. Yeah. They just didn't, because that wasn't what the game was. And the game has to be what the game is.
Yeah. Otherwise, what would the game be?
This is the 8th entry in this series. Like, put that in Final Fantasy terms, right? Like it's, this is like, it'd be like Final Fantasy 1 to Final Fantasy 8 and Fire Emblem 1 to this. Yeah. Like the amount of like just kind of small tweaks, but this is in that list of up until Awakening, like in the Dragon Warrior Pokemon, set of franchises that barely changed. That period of Nintendo specifically from 1990 through to let's say the mid 2000s. There were some franchises where they took some risks, but like not the minor ones, really. No, yeah. It's a real steady period. Yeah. And that's a weird way. Like I have a lot of sympathy actually for these devs. I was thinking about this where like they're kind of in a camp, like being asked to make Awakening, like, explicit, in it, not explicitly, but just saying like, hey, if your next game doesn't sell at least this many units, you don't get to make this series anymore. In one of your ears, and having in the other ear, having the fans are like, no, these random stat growths that you have to like guess or look up are actually good, is like, it was probably maddening.
Yeah.
And just, if you do a game and it gets this like very passionate fandom, but doesn't sell as many as it wants, I understand the temptation to cater to that very passionate fandom as opposed to chasing like a wider base, right? Like that's something that we relate to on the network, right? We do that. So I get it in like a lot of ways, but just in terms of like my own specific taste as a gamer American, almost all the changes they made are good. Yeah. Like I don't think that it gained a lot from a lot of the things that it shed. And I've talked to people to be like, hey, what do you like about this? And I hear them and I read them and I'm like, I believe them. Yeah. But it's just, they're just saying something appeals to them that doesn't appeal to me. Yeah. It'd be like me being like, man, the sandwich is super good, Cole. It has tons of mayo on it. Like,
I just swimming in mayo.
I just swim in mayo. I really love the amount of mayo on it. And to you, that's just never going to be, it's like, okay, like I understand that someone can like mayo, but I'm grossed out by mayo. I am grossed out by slot machines. Yes. I'm grossed out by, really swingy character deaths. Which were like the two big things it felt like it gave up in Awakening.
Yes.
So there are also indoor maps in this,
I love
which
these things.
again,
Yeah.
this is pretty fun. This to me is a better articulation of this. Like me going across the map to go talk to somebody and they're like knock on their door and be like, "What can you tell me about kingdoms?" And then they just talk to me. Makes less sense than me sending my thief out to grab treasures while I'm like looting a place.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Hello, comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's just more genre, in line. No.
Yeah.
So, hey, Frankenstein. Yeah. Anyway.
The rare Waff Frankenstein appearance.
Yeah. Usually stays quiet on Thursdays. So.
Let's talk about some of these ways that characters can grow.
Yes.
One of the more esoteric ones is weapon level. Where as you use a weapon, you become more proficient with it. This is how equipment is gated to a certain extent. You can be a sword wielder, but you cannot wield that sword because it's too much sword for you. Yeah.
Yep. It is too high a weapon level. That's all, good and fine.
Yeah.
I can dig that. It's a little weird when the primary benefit of a lot of class changes is upping your weapon diversity.
Yes.
So if I have been training somebody in the sword, choosing a class that also allows them to use axes does increase their versatility, but you're starting from 0 on axes. Like you start with a rank D or whatever.
Yeah.
In axes, but it does reward you for sticking with a weapon.
Yes.
In this.
And by and large, most characters can only get S rank on one particular weapon.
Yes.
Getting S on one locks you out of S on everything else.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's talk about supports.
Let's do it.
Supports are super important to the series.
Right.
It is a thing that people love.
Character relationships generally are very important later on in the series. That would become a more just explicit dating and relationship kind of thing. But, even here, and I presume before, different characters have different affinities for each other, which means if they are next to each other in battle, they can talk at certain points. But the more they fight next to each other, the more that affinity grows. And there are 3 different support conversations that you can have that reveal some details about those characters, furthers their relationship, and gives them a stronger buff when they are fighting within 3 squares of each other.
Yes, gives them a stat bonus. And this is where the lion's share of the characterization comes from. One of the things when I was like, hey, what do people like about Fire Emblem, online? The most common answer from everyone is the characters. Yeah. And I was a little bit perplexed by that because this game specifically is known to have one of the best casts. And I generally like the characters in this. Yeah. They're fine. But I wasn't these aren't great. They're not particularly deep. Yeah. Each one gets a trait. And I'm a trait and a design. And I'm okay, that's kind of anime.txt for video games, right? They're noble but good. And I was they're okay. But then when you start reading into support conversations, it's these, coupled with the generally above average writing in this game, those are actually pretty good. Yeah. The reason why I didn't engage with them very much is because I was told that I have to go kill this monster. So I don't want to just have everyone stand around.
Priorities, please.
Again, why is this happening in the battle system? Why can't if I were designing this from the ground up, it would be between battles, you got to choose to have 3 people talk to each other. Yeah. As opposed to making this an opportunity cost of in the actual fight. It's weird. Yeah. And to getting some of these that are ideal, when I looked up the min-maxing guides for it, there's actually a strategic consideration in which characters you want to have next to each other. Yeah. Having having 2 weak characters next to each other is not a great idea because that's going to attract enemy aggro. And they can't stand up to enemy aggro. Right. I tended to pair a stronger character or a very mobile character with my weak characters so they can get them around or block shots for them. Yeah. Or rescue them. But some of those very min-maxy things are meant to be hey, put your 2 squishiest people right next to each other and have them talk for a frankly insulting number of turns to get to these high level ranks. It's 40 or something to get to some to do a lot of them. It's
very expensive.
Yes, in terms of my time and my opportunity cost within the game.
It's the opportunity cost within the game specifically. Turns are so valuable, right? Yeah. Yeah, and just if it was a choice between completing the mission or having nobody die, completing the mission with no deaths or learning more about these characters, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep calling you Chief, and that's going to have to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't learn your name because we're trying to save the goddamn world.
Yeah, we just call each other by our last name, like gym class.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we're not going to actually become friends. And this game is about the power of friendship, like explicitly, and then also, kind of suggestively between also your units and also the player is meant to just kind of gain an affection for these characters as well. So like having this system that deepens that and struts it up be something that I do instead of playing the game, I think is very weird.
Yeah. Thankfully, there's some quality about the characters, and there's a quality to the writing where even the base level was just like sufficient enough for me to care about that, to care about these characters. Additionally, because like, I don't know, like I don't want that person to die. They're good in fights. Like they fill a role on my team, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that when we talk about permadeath.
Right.
And crits, because I also think that is a weird thing that, like, I agree with you, but I don't think the game supports that very well.
No.
And how people play it. So like when I got the supports, the content of the supports was uniformly pretty good.
Yes.
It was just, that's not really what I had a problem with. It was just the act of getting them.
Yeah.
Which I did not like. Characters have level caps. The level cap is 20. They also have stat caps.
Yes.
And once they get to level 10, they can use an item to evolve into a prestige class. And this entry is semi-unique in having these branching classes.
Yeah.
A lot of times, typically, they basically Final Fantasy 1'd it, or you'd have two choices.
Right.
They'd just be like, oh, like the thief has become a ninja. This time you have choices between them, and then those can lead to other choices with certain these specific like choir or squire classes. Like I can't remember what they're called, but
like trainees,
trainees,
is generally what they're called. Yeah.
Yeah, the real little boys, the Pichus of the world.
Yeah, you hand Franz a moonstone and he turns into a Clefable.
It's basically what happens.
Yeah.
Except it's a pirate stone and a sea stone or whatever. These like generally, I just looked up what they were and what the stat gains would be. But it's pretty rare that you get a new verb from these. You sometimes get like things like that assassination ability, but mostly it's like a fairly decent stat bump and then like a movement or weapon kind of change.
Yes.
For these. And they look cooler.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Which is part of the reason to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aesthetics. Important.
Yeah. And they are more powerful.
Yeah.
They're typically like an unpromoted class. Like unless you're playing the real long game and doing magic harps, like the promoted class is worth doing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about level ups.
Let's do this.
I have a real bugbear with this.
Yeah, a bugbear was going to be the word I was going to use actually. So
I have a real owl bear with this.
So I'll generally describe it, and then you can go off. So when you level up,
you can go off too. Cool. We can both go off. I don't want to just take the heat for not liking this major thing that tons of fans of this game really like.
Do they really like it? Is this okay? Yeah.
Yes. I'm amazed as you are. People love this shit, and I cannot get with them.
So this is not like other RPGs where stat growth is deterministic, right? Where you can just generally like look at a big table and see that like at level 35. There, the Rose is going to have these spells, etc., or these stats rather. On level up, your stat growths are basically just kind of randomized. And that is pinned to like a certain percentage chance that they have for that to grow. So like a strength oriented character will have a 60%, a growth rate of 60%, which means that 40% of the time when you level up, their damage stat is not going to go up. Level ups are quite rare in the game. It's a 20-hour game, at least putatively on how long to beat.
It's not. And it's also I get that feeling that the intended way to play is with more training and more, strategizing around who is getting level ups.
Yes.
Playing more into that long game that I talked about earlier, which is not necessarily apparent unless this is not your first rodeo.
Right. And what this leads to, functionally for me, and where this really rubbed me the wrong way, is droughts. Just where you have a handful of levels where you're not necessarily doing more damage. It's like, well, I guess I'm just like a little bit more lucky now. Maybe that will help me, but that has nothing to do with how I'm using this character.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is, and it's worth noting that this information is not in game.
Right.
So a character's stat growth rate you don't get. You have to look up outside of the game to see it. So you can know whether it's worth like investing in a character.
Right.
And most characters will become okay in the aggregate if you have okay luck.
Yeah.
But you have to have okay luck because it really is kind of luck of the dice. And I do not get this. I have a very hard time understanding why this lasted for 8+ games as a mechanic, because I hate this.
Yeah.
Like I hate it. The good feel of getting a good level up to me is not anywhere nearly balanced by the absolute dog shit feeling of like, oh, my fighter got resistance. Like I put in this time to train them. Like I set them up. I'm like, oh, this guy needs levels.
Yeah.
I'm going to have him kill this monster. Nothing happened. Like it just feels really bad.
Yeah.
I don't like slot machines
No.
in games very much. And a lot of Fire Emblem is about random chance.
Yes.
And the things that people like about this, I just want to give, and even though I don't agree, I'm not like, well, look at me. Like I'm not trying to make fun of you for liking a thing I don't like. I'm just trying to point out the upside of something that is that characters are unique. So like, your Seth is different than my Seth. They're also different playthrough to playthrough. That's something people really like about this. I've had people say that they like that they get more attached to the character because they like root for them. Like there's a lot of narratives of this game of here's a villager who in the narrative is just like a simple farm boy or just a simple, low-level soldier who's kind of a bumbling nincompoop. And if you stick with them, their stat growths are such that even though they start weak, they become powerful. And people get invested in that mechanical narrative. And then the third thing that I've heard that people like is the pure like slot machine. Like it just feels good when you get a good level up. None of those work on me. I mean, like
what's the correlation or crossover with people who really enjoy like rare drops in RPGs generally?
It feels like it would be something similar.
Yeah.
Because it does feel like, and I was talking about this on Twitter, like it makes total sense to me that Fire Emblem became a hit iOS gachapon game.
Yes.
Like the when I read the discourse around this game, there's a lot of this level ups that are like basically a slot machine. There's a lot of like emphasis on collecting them all, like getting all the units. Like there's a recruitable, I got to get them.
Yeah.
Almost in like a Pokemon sense. Like there's a lot of things I associate with slot machine style play that have been baked into the series for a long time. And the stat growth thing, like all it takes is 2 like just dog shit levels of, and it's like, well, now I bench this person.
Yeah.
There's not a finite amount of experience in this game, so that doesn't matter. But it does mean that all the experience this person sucked up, if I want that for a unit that's actually going to be useful, I have to go grind.
Yep.
And that's not good. I don't like grinding. And that's to me, I understand that other people don't mind that. To me, I think that is not good or fun.
Right. And just so we're clear and making sure everybody's heard of us, anybody who has ever liked a Fire Emblem game is a degenerate gambler.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So that is definitely, thank you for making the subtext super text.
Cool.
I don't think anyone who likes it is a degenerate gambler. I think that some people said the appeal of this specific mechanic was gambling related.
Yeah.
So
for me, it just didn't work. I like level ups to be reliable is a thing, especially because they are a result of time. They are a result of, prioritizing the use of that character.
It's a strategic choice.
Yeah.
Like you want to have a deterministic result to a strategic choice.
Yes.
Like not necessarily like 100% deterministic, but more like, hey, I made the choice to invest in this character. That should have like an A-B result.
Agreed.
Because I want to feel good about making that choice. And in the long game, like playing the odds like this and having it work out in aggregate, like one of the things I contrast it with, because I'm playing through Final Fantasy Tactics at the time, and I'm not going to just like stand that game constantly in the middle of this, but different jobs have different growth rates in that as well, but it's just guaranteed. So it's like, if I want this character to have good magic, I spend some levels as a black mage.
Yeah.
And that is just, I've made the decision and I get the result. Here, it's just like, if I like this character, or if I think this character might be useful, and I get a couple of bad rolls on the dice, like that can be like relatively devastating, at least in the short term, even if it might eventually even out. And it just feels so bad. Like how many like no stat level ups did you think you got during this thing?
Too many. I don't know.
I think I got 4 total, which is less than average looking online. I got many like just one stat, like, hey, luck, yay, hey, resistance. But I had 4 where nothing happened. And I'm like, God, does that feel like shit? Because these guys have a 20 level like cap. I'll never get that level back. That's the only possible thing. And I got nothing for it. What is a level then if you don't actually get any improvement to the character? Like, it's so contrary to RPGs.
Yeah. No lesson today.
So yeah, no lesson today, says Ernie. Yeah. Drives me nuts. Yeah. And you got it here in the notes, like, you might be invested in a character who might just eventually slowly become unuseful. That's what the Seths in the other games do. Right. They have shitty growth. So like, yes, they start powerful, but everyone will outclass them. And hey, that experience you had them eat up. Uh-oh, you're an idiot. It's gone forever. We're intelligent systems and we fucked you over. Yep. Nah. And unless you just know the community and look online to see which characters are Jagans and which characters are, I can't remember the other type. You're just a fool and you got played like one.
Yeah.
And I think it's vile. Like, I think it's a really bad philosophy.
It's not great.
Yeah.
Hey, invest your time in this. Ooh, that was a bad decision. Why'd you invest your time in this?
Yeah, made you flinch.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
You certainly did. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really hate this. They have switched this over to kind of weighted averages. I think that in the newer games, in the newest one, it's a totally different system. Like Three Houses is like almost a completely different genre, is my understanding. No. In Awakenings, they're like weighted, and I think you're guaranteed to get 2 stat ups. So they're weighted differently. They're weighted rolls. It's not a pure die roll, and you always will get something.
Yeah.
So eventually they kind of did away with this.
Good.
Which I appreciate.
Yeah. Speaking of hallmarks of the series, one of them that is pretty major is the idea of character permadeath. This would become optional in Awakening, but it's in full swing here, and it's in full swing in Path of Radiance, the one that came after this. When you lose a unit, they are gone forever. They give you a little farewell, and bye-bye. They are not around. You have main characters who, in this game, it's Erica and Ephraim, kind of your leaders. If they die, then the game is over. Otherwise, though, the game is encouraging you to move on and replace that unit with somebody else.
Yep. And to me, this system works if you. So I did, again, trying to figure out. I had the impression that most people do not roll with this system.
I did not.
Yeah, so I rolled with it for the most part, but like I looked online, I did a poll, right? Like 150 people voted who are fans of like old Fire Emblem, and 77% reload.
Yeah, like
they do not let characters die. There are a couple of minor like mechanical considerations that still survive that choice to just reload, but fuck, like what a discouraging waste of time.
Yeah,
like I don't know, like the idea of like I got to the end of this map and because of the crit system, like which I keep saying the crit system, crits are devastating. We talked about that. And they're fairly unpredictable because I can just lose a unit anytime. Just having to lose that 30, 40 minutes just to keep somebody alive. I think I hate that.
Yeah.
Hate it. I would never play this game like that. Like I don't understand it. And the people who do, it's like, well, I have this perfectionist streak. I want to just, keep iterating on this until I can do it perfectly. It feels like a fail condition if I lose the characters, but this feels like an accident. Like I think that initially, because these games are famous for having huge casts. Yeah. That's the only reason I can think of it for having these huge casts, many characters of which are duplicates, basically, is that you're supposed to just roll with it. Someone dies, like roll with it, but no one actually does it. Right. So you end up with this like huge cast. You end up with this huge cast of characters. You'll never get to know them all. You'll never get to use them all. And this constant floating fail state that can strike on because of a 1 in 5 roll and some bad luck that causes you to lose 20 to 30 minutes of progress at random. Yeah. I hate it. Like I hate the idea when I was trying to play that way or when I was reloading, I could not do it. The idea makes me crazy. Yeah. Like,
no, yeah. I didn't want to spend time building up somebody else for my team, Yeah.
Well, that too. Right.
It's like, yeah.
And again, me trying to give credence to counter arguments to things. The strongest thing I saw people say was that if characters came back, you could use them as like sacrifices to get through the map. That's true. Yeah. Like I totally think that's true. what you sell to buy that though is huge,
Yeah.
which is so much of your time and so much character investment, and in this game so much grinding to either grind up a replacement character or just replay a map that you've already largely completed.
Yeah.
I hate that. Like
Yep.
it's like, man, it's vile. Like, and you take permadeath in like XCOM, right? Like another strategy game. It is not that hard to retrain a unit in XCOM.
Right.
Like they start pretty capable and powerful, like right from the bat. They level up pretty quickly, and you get these kind of emergent stories from them.
Yeah.
You know, if you're playing that in Iron Man, or not Iron Man, but you're playing it in, you're rolling with the deaths mode, which is a challenge. But if you do it that way, you know, but even in that on the hardware, you can quick save. Here, if you're playing this on GBA, you can't quick save.
Nope.
During that. And these emergent stories that you would get, like where it's like, oh, this character died at a clutch moment. I don't think you're necessarily encouraged to just reset that, but most people do.
Yeah, and when most people do, and then conversely, you see complaints about them making this optional.
Yes.
Those two facts do not square up for me. I understand that it is likely two different sets of people who are doing that. I think it was wise for them to, you know, move away from this. I
can't believe it took them this long.
Yeah.
I cannot believe this is the 8th entry in the series that still has this.
Yeah.
You know, and the 9th one still has it. Like, it just feels like it's made for a very specific kind of gamer, like psychographic, who is really like a perfectionist, really okay with just repeating a task until they get it perfectly right, which to me, my mind when I was playing it like that, turned this into Intelligent Systems Advance Wars series, which I don't like, because I don't want to play a puzzle game where there's one solution and it's a 75 move puzzle game.
Yeah.
And it turns it into that in a way that I think is kind of vile.
Yeah.
So like I managed to have fun with this game, but I lost, you know, by the end, I think I lost 4 or 5 people. And rest in peace, people who I can barely remember. Who I got one line to introduce your personality and never did your supports. Yeah. So I don't know you. You know, it sucks that you had to die for the cause, but I was not about to replay that map.
No.
So
no.
Yeah, it's a really, really weird thing that just counteracts like how most people play. The newer ones also, they allow, even if you do, the newest one has a rewind system, which is just a kinder way of reloading. Yeah. And you have a limited number of them, which I think is a good way to do it.
Yeah, that seems really wise.
Yeah, like you can say, like, I'm going to roll with the punches, but I get to make a couple mistakes. It's not just an errant crit. Yeah. And I think they've toned down like errant crits as well. Like, I mean, I know I keep saying crits in this this thing, but they're really important to the flow of play.
They really are.
Like in this game, like it is very crit based in general, and it is the bad luck that is constantly over your shoulder in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is something that I think is actually remarkable and kind of an achievement is in the way the dialogue is coded. So, when a non-Erica or Ephraim character dies, the macro story is unaffected. It's just that different scenes will adjust to accommodate this. So if, Larachel is dead, somebody else comes in and kind of says something approximating what she would say. Things still move forward. There are like little scenes in. There's a tremendous amount of intricacy to that. And I can also see that building up a lot of goodwill for people is like, oh yeah, like just I get to see different content and different versions of things depending on who is still alive. It reacts to what happens.
Yeah, but I mean, most people don't let people die.
Well, yeah,
I think that's content that most people don't actually see.
Yeah,
which is cool that allows for it. But
I'm just putting it out there. I can see that.
It's cool that they do it.
Yeah,
for sure. Like I think it's probably a largely unappreciated. Like I can imagine people not knowing that who are fans of the series, just because like why would I let my little friend die? Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, they give you 25 friends. You get so many. Like, I almost guarantee the initial idea behind these huge casts was extra lives.
Yeah.
For you, and it just the game didn't develop that way. Like the fandom just didn't develop that way. Mm-hmm. But it's almost it's similar when we did Baldur's Gate 2. Like I feel that's one of the reasons for that huge cast as well.
Yeah.
And that is and you get their equipment back, so you get a lot of the actual investment in the character back in that game if a character dies. Like I also don't let characters die in that. Yep. So I get it in a way, but I think in this game that is the intent. Mm-hmm. So it is cool the way that the scenes will have somebody speak up. It reminds Final Fantasy VII will do that as well.
Yep.
in certain parts if you don't have Yuffie or Vincent.
That's good.
With you.
Yeah. We mentioned that huge cast. You get new allies throughout the story. Different story developments and different story missions bring new folks in. You can also recruit special characters on the maps. It'll be part of a mission that you learn about by going to visit some of these houses, or there are named enemies that you can send your leader to speak with them and convince them to join you.
Yeah, your leader or a specific character that might have a connection.
Correct, yeah.
And there are hints at this either in the opening kind of cinematic part of a level or in those houses. Mm-hmm. So, and I liked being able to recruit people. I wasn't a completionist about it, but I liked that it was extant.
Yeah, it was a fun goal to prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To me, it is a more sensible goal than like going and checking on this house.
Yes.
Yeah. So there are a million characters in this game. Being honest, and this is probably infuriating to some people, they blurred together to me pretty well. Mm-hmm. I remember Lute. I remember the father and son. Yeah. Joshua, the swordsman, mm-hmm. I like that guy quite a bit.
Yeah.
The mercenary people, I like those people quite mm-hmm. a bit. We may not get in detail to your favorites, and we also may not have gotten the best conversations because, we did not fully engage with the support system for reasons we enumerated.
Yes. Yeah. So understand that as we're going through and talking about these, we're going to highlight the ones that really spoke to us.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's talk about outside of battle.
Yeah.
It's weird that we're just now getting to this, but yeah.
An unusual thing about this game is it has a world map.
Yeah. You can return.
Series.
Yes. You can return to previous towns to buy stuff. You can revisit old maps. There are randomly appearing monsters that will show up on certain map nodes, making backtracking quite treacherous. All of this is pulled over from the second entry in the series, Fire Emblem Gaiden, which was like discredited and ignored, and the development team specifically made a point to bring this forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is also too, if you're saying, well, why are you complaining about going and checking on these houses in battle? If you can go back to the town, a lot of the battles have a sub goal of checking the houses before they get ravaged.
Yes.
And if you don't check them in that first battle, when you come back, they're dead.
Yes.
So it is not true that, mm-hmm. you can just kind of go back, but you can go back. This has led this entry, it is well loved. It's also fairly divisive in the fandom because it's called the easiest in the series, just because you do have the ability to grind. Mm-hmm. Which I did not do in this game, and also I don't think this game is super easy.
No, I could if I could have ground to make it easy. It will just have to be hard.
Yeah. Because I'm going to avoid that because it is, like, as we mentioned, how long to beat is a lie on this one. It is a very long game.
Yes. Yeah. So, if we call something hard, just understand we didn't put in the, tens of hours.
Yes.
So, sorry. So this was developed alongside the Path of Radiance, the GameCube entry in the series. They didn't really think they were going to make another Game Boy Advance one. I get the sense this just kind of happened by accident. Mm-hmm. They hired a bunch of freelancers to come in and finish this up. And weirdly, that bifurcated process created two entries in the series that are pretty well regarded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So as we mentioned, this is kind of a successor to Fire Emblem Gaiden, which ended up getting remade. Like, one of the weird things about this series is that it's constantly doubling back on itself. A lot of late entries are remakes. Mm-hmm. The game Fire Emblem Echoes is a remake of Gaiden.
I just learned that last night.
Yeah. Another reason why this is considered a good entry point, and probably why Ben picked it, in part, is because it is unrelated to the previous games.
Right.
It takes place in a far-off continent, has a self-contained story.
Yes.
And we'll get in the bulk of what we'll be talking about in the body of the episode is that narrative.
Right. The characters in this game don't really show up again. They appear as Street Pass content, like DLC for Fire Emblem Awakening, but this is not where you're playing. Yeah, it's
not Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
It's not like Smash Brothers.
Right. It's not like the main line of the story where everybody's a descendant of Roy or something like that.
Yeah. No Roys or Marths, even though the two principals in this game do have quite a fandom.
Yes.
This game sold fairly well by comparative standards, even though, after this, the series did end up in trouble, and is regarded pretty well by fans of the series, even though, again, that is not, the Fire Emblem fandom is a fandom divided, is one of the things that I learned, because this engenders very strong opinions in both directions.
Yeah. To take Willie's monologue in The Simpsons about how the Scots ruined Scotland.
Exactly.
And you get a really good sense. You get a really good sense of what's going on there. Part of the reason why this sold so well, I think, is because this did come to America so late. Everybody was like, who are these blue-haired sword dudes in Smash Brothers Melee? There was an appetite for this, is the sense that I got. Yeah.
Yep.
So they were still in the honeymoon phase. New Fire Emblem games come out every few years. As of this recording, the most recent, literally just came out. Three Houses for the Switch. Like Gary said, that is, has a lot of new systems in it. It's very different than this, but, it's cool to see that they, after Awakening, they started playing around. They got a little bit less hidebound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is, good. Mm-hmm. I want this, the series. So, I've been pretty negative about this, and the end of this game left me with a rotten taste in my mouth. The things that I think are cool about this, I do want to see. At some point, I will probably pick up Three Houses. Mm-hmm. I'm interested in that. I don't like the fact that you're a teacher and you can date former students. I think that's gross.
Yep.
Date peers. Date peers. Only date peers. It's not complicated at all. Yeah. It's just a steadfast rule that should always be true. These power imbalances are gross. You need to stop it. I know this is a thing. In some Japanese media, not all, not making a straight generalization. It is something that comes up from time to time, like the teacher thing is, but we get over that. Don't stand so close to me stuff. Just stand close to people your own age with the same amount of power as you. Those are the people you should stand. Yeah. But I am interested in it. And part of it that is interesting to me that I didn't, when I was looking at what people like about the series, and that I realized, is that it is solidly a fantasy series. Mm-hmm. Unlike Final Fantasy, this never moved into whatever you would call Final Fantasy 13 now. I don't even know how to describe the genre of that.
That's just sci-fi, literally.
Yeah, a weird fantasy, diaphanous, fantasy sci-fi, though. It's a very strange hybrid of this. And this is just swords and dragons. Yeah. And stuff and I love that shit. I put wizards in my veins. This is my favorite stuff. I love that they do that. I love that they stuck with it, and we mentioned earlier, and this will come out when we talk about the plot, but the writing in this is generally above average. I don't think that it is world stopping, but it's not embarrassing at any point. The dialogue does not feel dumb. Mm-hmm. It moves along at a good clip. Yeah. And at least the setup of this is actually really good. The resolution and the antagonist I have some real problems with. Yeah. At least in my route. But the setup and idea of it is pretty solid.
The worst it gets is cliche.
Yes.
Which is a high
does
mark.
It.
Yeah.
But that is a high thing to say about it. It never gets stomach churning. It doesn't get dumb. Yeah. I'm never this is so dumb. It just kind of goes through some motions that I've seen before.
Yeah. Because you gave your top line at the start here, I'll give mine as well. I'm in a very similar boat. The kind of the back half of this game, I was just not necessarily that into it. I'm real curious about more recent entries in the series. I want to jump in and see, with this fresh in my mind, and see what changed. Specifically, because I am into kind of just the general level of the decisions that you make on each individual map, and I don't know, the characters stuck out to me. The kind of story and the way it is told is cool and good. Yeah.
This made me extreme, in a weird way, made me extremely, and I'm a low level of horniness for this at all the time, but made me super horny for when eventually we get to XCOM.
Yeah.
I just want to do some XCOM. Give me that strategy so bad. In that macro micro research kind of thing. That is the kind of short long game that I want to be playing right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is cool. It is. There are definitely some good things about it.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. So we start off with a prologue where it's kind of the attract mode, or when you first start the game, talking about how there are these sacred stones that are used by these 5 kingdoms to seal away a great evil on the continent of Magville.
Yes, and we get a rundown of generally these different kingdoms and their rulers. Kingdoms and rulers are just really important in the series. You pretty much always play as a lord of some kind.
Yeah. It's a lot of like the present. It's very Metal Wolf Chaos. it's very the king or prince just goes off to go fight.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. But the inciting incident is that with that explanation, the Grado Empire has now moved to attack the main kind of kingdom here of Renee, our viewpoint kingdom rather, and Prince Ephraim has gone missing.
Yeah. Yep. The king, Fado, as the king of Renai, orders Seth, who is this kind of this great knight, to take his daughter Erica, the princess, to safety in Frelia,
Right.
who is another neighboring kingdom.
Yeah.
After confirming that she still has her bracelet, that is one of the very cliches things about this game. I was like, oh yeah, the bracelet's the stone.
Yep. Okay.
Is your bracelet still okay? Why do you ask? Oh, no reason. The Fado's poker face is not great.
Yeah, nobody's poker face is great. Like the bracelet just keeps coming up. I just wanted Erica to say it's the stone, isn't it? And then they could say no, because it's not.
It's a stone. Yeah, it's part of the key, but it's very stone related.
Yes, it's like make sure you bring your teddy bear. It's not filled with $100 bills, is it? No,
it's twice as many $50 bills. I'm not judging you.
Yes. Yeah. But you're running away from the castle as it gets sacked, and we get introduced to Valter the Moonstone, who is, Grado's finest general. He's a real creepy dude. Oh, he talks about bloodlust and stuff like that, and attacks trying to abduct Erica, but Seth gets her away from him.
Yeah. And this is kind of the first, a lot of the characters have a little bit of the, like, how to draw anime the anime way to them. But Valter looks real. Like, I like the way that they make the evil characters look evil in this, which is primarily making them look tired.
Yep.
It's just so Valter's got these like this kind of like eyes a little bit, and he's big bags under his eyes.
A little bit waxen, yeah.
Yeah, and makes him look very explicitly evil.
Yeah.
So as they're getting away, Seth is injured.
Yeah.
At this point, which is going to kind of be in any of his supports that's going to come up. Him recovering from his injury.
Yeah, even though he is absolutely just running the battlefield.
You solo with him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But this is how you get your basic combat tutorial is Erica coming to Seth's rescue as some bandits catch up. Like a big part of this is that, like, even though Grado comes in and sacks Renee, I'm going to call it Renee, to making that decision now. They just basically neglect it afterward. And the chaos of bandits coming in is what ultimately is the bigger problem. Yeah.
Yeah. You get a little bit of a sense of what the world state was like before the inciting incident.
Yes. And like the thing that is cool about this first third of the game is that it is Erica trying to get out of this kingdom as it is falling apart.
Yeah. And it's, a little bit of a spoiler, like the first third of this is my favorite.
Yes.
Part of it, which I don't know how popular that is, but it is, it's true for me.
Yeah.
As a thing. So this moves us on to chapter 1, Escape. So Grado's men had advanced on the kingdom of Frelia, and at the border castle of Milan, where Princess Tana is organizing a search for Erica.
Yes.
So this is another royal. This is the royal of Frelia.
Yeah. Tana, I think she is a Pegasus rider, something like that. I always end up rescuing her. She was not necessarily not
strong enough.
No, yeah, not at all.
She's in the if it gave me the in the arms of an angel, like those we lost reel. Like she died. She was my first death.
Yeah.
So I knew and I tried. I reloaded a couple times with her, and I just got bad luck.
Yeah. And
it was before I knew how to play the game and not put her in danger correctly. There's something about how once you drop somebody off, that's the end of your turn. Or I just didn't have enough movement to also get out of the way.
Yeah.
So I would try to bring a tanky character into an area, and then the enemy would ignore the tank and just kill the Pegasus rider.
Yeah.
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 So rest in peace, Tana.
And I don't have the button. Yeah. So Seth and Erica, they arrive as Tana is kidnapped, and you've got to save this town. So the first battle takes place at a pretty good level of zoom. You have some allied units who show up, Franz and Gilliam. Franz is one of your first non-Seth mounted characters. And Gilliam is your first tanky guy. Wears heavy armor, uses lances, moves two squares at a time, but barely anything can touch him.
Yeah. Yep. And this is a good time maybe to point out the minor differences between the weapons as well.
Yes.
Because it's not just the triangle. So lancers are kind of average across the board. Swords do a little bit less damage, but are high crit and high accuracy. And axes are low accuracy, low crit, but very high damage.
Yeah.
So that's kind of their thing. So lances were very, I liked lances because they were very steady.
Yeah.
Trying to minimize that randomization.
Yeah. I liked using Ephraim because he is a main character who doesn't use a sword. He's a lancer. Neat.
Yep. So, yep. And then when I eventually got my mermaid in, like, I ended up using Joshua a lot in my game.
Yes.
And he was pretty powerful.
I used Joshua quite a bit as well. It's an easy mission. The enemy leader, Brett Brigwit, he has a few men to deal with, but really you're still very much in tutorial mode at this point. Brigwit, he is standing in this gate to the Mulan Castle. If you are standing in a fortification, you heal at the end of every turn. If you send somebody up to do an attack on him, it'll just be resisted. Really, it'll do very little damage. A hint at a house says that a rapier will pierce his armor. Turns out Erica has one of those things, so I sent her up and defeated him in one turn. Yeah.
Yep. We should talk about stats and the attack economy part of this. So you have a stat called speed, which determines how many attacks you get. If you beat an enemy's speed by a certain number, and I don't remember what it is exactly, you'll get multiple attacks. So it would work like you attack, they counterattack, you attack again. If you have low enough speed, you only attack once. There's also a really important stat called Constitution, which determines not your HP or your defense like you might think, but determines how heavy equipment you can carry. And having very heavy equipment cuts down on your move and your speed. Thing. So you will get fewer attacks if you're using equipment outside of your class. And this is a way that a lot of enemies that look like they're going to be, bosses that look like they're going to be unbeatable are actually pretty beatable.
I pretty much always tried to maximize for getting 2 attacks in what I could. Yep.
And that's the kind of balance for some of the weaker characters. If they often get 2 attacks, that means they're going to take an attack between those attacks generally, though. So they have to be, have high enough evade, or you need to prioritize enemies with low enough accuracy.
Additionally, it's not 2 attacks that have an equal chance to hit. One can miss and then one can hit.
Exactly. So, after you take out that guy, you ride for Freyla Castle. The king there tells you that King Fado, your father, fell to Degradus' men.
Yes. So the king is dead, and we have one prince who is missing and a princess who is basically in exile right now, pretending to be a mercenary. Ephraim is ridden deep into enemy territory to fight Grados, to actually go there. So King Hayden, who's the king of this land, will send warriors to escort Erica. Right.
And provide reinforcements. And provide, I think this is where you get your supply train.
Oh, yeah.
So you can, your characters can only carry a certain number of items with them, but you can also just send things to the caravan. And the caravan is always available. Certain characters just have access to it in the battle, and you always have access to it in between battles.
Yes. And if you're standing, if a non-caravan character is standing next to a character, usually Ephraim or Erica, they have access to it as well. They don't have to do a whole trade back and forth kind of thing. Something that I like about this, it's just window dressing, but it works into the dialogue. When you take a new place, it's not just that oh, we're here. Somebody, usually Seth, will come in and say, oh, we've garrisoned people at the village behind us, et cetera, et cetera. In the fiction, it's not just a bunch of, colorful haired dudes running around and doing stuff. There is a greater, supply train that is going on.
Yeah. It's somewhere weird. It's kind of it reminded me again of being a little bit between, the level of tactics games, because it had kind of a Three Kingdoms feel to it, where it almost feels like these individual units represent armies.
Yes.
They don't, because when they show them attack, it's just a dude attacking another dude. But it would also make sense if they represented units. Yeah,
if they did that like Civ. Yeah.
Yep. There we go. So this moves on to Chapter 2, The Protected.
So we're heading into Grado, and we have to start with this village of Ide. And this is like a mountain pass. And when you go through, you see these 3 villages that are under attack by bandits. This is the first map that introduces kind of just a neutral side in the battle. It's represented by green. They usually go between you and the enemy. And we've got these allies that we can bring in, Ross and Garcia, who are a father and son. Garcia is the father. Both of them are axe people. Garcia has good stats at the start. Ross is a trainee and has like much better growth than Garcia is, at the trade-off of being far more fragile right now.
Yep. And they are recruitable. You can you can still grab them.
Yeah.
So like, going and grabbing Ross, and then if you can make Ross talk to Garcia, you can recruit him during the battle. This thing. This is basically, that is the idea, is your tutorial for rescuing.
Yeah.
Here, because your Pegasus Knight, Vanessa, and you get a Pegasus Knight and a priest, Mulder, who show up, and you're going to want to rescue these two guys.
Yeah.
So
Vanessa is OP as all hell. Her growth is crazy.
Yeah. Vanessa worked out well for me. I think at some point Vanessa got benched just because I found something more interesting, but I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
Priests are like a weird value proposition in this, because you can only gain experience by doing actions in this. And you're kind of limited. They only get, this one turn unless somebody needs healing. They can't do anything.
Right.
So I definitely took healers along with me, but they didn't grow very much, and they kind of remained not super powerful throughout. I know that they can be. Like, I looked at, like, this character Mulder is a meme because you can turn him into a very powerful unit. But I did not have that experience.
Yeah, I just successively benched all of my healers until I got Archel. You just outclassed all of them. It's really weird, the way that you just get units later that obsolete previous ones.
It's almost as if they think the previous ones would have died, and that you need to replace them.
Whoa!
And they give you level appropriate ones.
No,
you can't let the little like colorful haired character die. I think you're supposed to. Because there's items that heal as well. We should mention that. So it's not like it's the only way you can heal. So
yeah. So when Erica visits one of these villages, she will hide her identity. But we're behind enemy lines. There are going to be Grado generals here. This is our first encounter with Selena.
Yes. One of the three kind of Grado generals that we'll deal with. Yeah. Here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you recruit Garcia and Ross at the end. You kill all the bandits. There's an archer there as well, which flying units are weak to archers. Archers are a little underpowered in this game. I found they're okay.
Yeah.
I ended up using the prince that you get later, who starts as a pre-promote. It was much more useful than the archer that I actually get.
Yeah, and it starts as a sniper. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So I ended up liking the sniper one. And a villager comes to approach Erica and warns her that there's this infamous band of thieves in the area. And that, hey, I heard from Ephraim, he's outnumbered.
Yep.
All these Ephraim updates just from random people is pretty weird. Everyone subscribes to the blog. Like, his Instagram's getting real dark. So
you gotta send somebody to check on him.
I know you don't have any cell phone service here, but
no,
I just checked.
It's getting lit. And this is the first of several flashbacks. Flashback to 3 years ago. Erica is asking Ephraim to teach her how to fight. She doesn't want to be a burden on him. Not really here for any of this, honestly.
I don't actually like the two main characters of this game very much.
No.
Like the other characters in the game, some of them I thought were pretty cool. Like, I think Lute is pretty fun. Like, they're fun characters in this game. I think that the two main characters are like pretty painfully bland.
Yeah.
And a weird thing about the emotional stakes of this game is that the trio, the friendship of the trio, it's very important that I believe in that for the emotional stakes to pay off at the end. And I did not get invested very much.
Yeah. But
this is very cliche, like Erica just being very demure during a lot of this, like being very mousy. It doesn't feel like she's a particularly strong character.
No. And Ephraim is honorable, but good. And like the worst that he gets is just a little bit too devoted to his friends.
Yeah.
I think that if I had a negative trait, it's that I'm too much it's I care too much.
Yeah, exactly. You could say I'm an overachiever. I'm a perfectionist.
Yeah.
All these characters are job interviewing. Player.
Well, those two specifically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So back in the current day, a thief steals Erica's bracelet, and Seth freaks out because his teddy bear full of cocaine is gone. So we got to go get it.
Yep. And yes, that's like, no, we have to get the bracelet. So if you are slow and you don't understand that there's something to the bracelet, now you do.
Yes.
This moves on to chapter 3, the Bandits of Borgo.
Yay.
Which I love, the Bandits of Borgo. So
yeah.
And in retrospect, it's a weird kind of pacing thing, because it's like at the end of the game, I was like, why are we spending so much time on just like trifling bullshit, like these monsters. And I forgot that you spend a lot of the beginning of the game with like just unrelated bandits and stuff too.
Yeah.
Like this is definitely side quest material. This is definitely Yuffie stealing the materia to introduce you to new classes. But I still think it works better just because it's novel.
Yeah, it's novel. I think I'm a little bit more into it specifically because this is building the world a little bit. Like I said, Renee and Grado are in war, and bandits are gonna rise up. In the midst of that and take advantage of stuff. It feels this feels motivated in a way that, like, I don't know, there's a big mountain full of eggs.
Yeah, that fucking egg mountain, dude. Like egg mountain. The point in which I messaged you at some point on Slack, and I'm like, this game is fucking dragging. It was egg mountain. I hate that egg mountain. Yeah. So it's so weird because it's not, the game doesn't usually have monsters in it. We didn't mention that when we talked about the iconoclastic nature of this game, but monsters being in this game is a rarity as well. Right. They're there because they were in Gaiden and they wanted to do callbacks because this is a weird developer that is so bound by tradition as almost as if it is like Genie's gaze. So we go up into the mountains and we're approached by this young girl named Niemi, who says, "Hey, you need to rescue my friend Colm." Who went to this bandit base to steal something back from them. Niemi joins us. She's an archer, and Colm is a thief.
Yes. And
we'll go to the mission where we start with Niemi, but if Niemi talks to Colm, we get Colm. Otherwise, Colm goes and steals everything before we can get to it.
Yeah. So this is our first indoor mission. It's great that we get Niemi here as an archer because archers can shoot over walls. Ceilings don't exist in this world.
Nope. It's like LA. It's like basically open air everything.
Yes.
And I was pretty disappointed in Niemi. Niemi is where my a couple of realizations about the systems of this came forward for me. One, looking up, I was like, oh, cool, an archer. Like everyone who listens to the show knows my dumb weakness for archers. So I was like, yeah, and also just attacking from a distance seemed really useful to me. Like there's a hatchet the little boy Ross has, but I was like, this would be really cool to have a strong archer. And then wanting to play her getting a couple bum levels in a row, and then looking online and seeing like, I was like, oh, why did I get an absolutely dog shit level? Looking online, learning about the growths, then seeing that this character is not considered to be like a good character. Yeah. And I was like, well, there's nothing in the game to suggest that. Like, I know that if I had better luck, I could use her, but it was very disappointing to me. Because they also have like an interesting dynamic. Like she's also really demure, which is not great. Colm's just a total asshole. To them, but they're definitely like a pair. Like their supports and stuff, which I read later, are like interesting. They have a relationship and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I want this thief archer pair. Nope. No to you. Basically. So you need to get to the throne room. This is usually I have a couple different types of missions. There are survive missions, route missions, which means kill everyone, and then capture. Right. Like go and grab a specific spot. This is one where we have to grab the throne, where Bazba, the bandit of Borgo, is. So
syllables.
Bazba, the bandits of Borgos go to Buca de Beppo.
Oh man, just incredibly good phonemes. Phoneme game on point. This is good and fun. I like the just the bottlenecks that result from these indoor these indoor missions. This one is relatively brief. Eventually every map is going to get big, including the indoor maps. We're at a good level right now, though.
Agreed.
After this, Seth takes Erica's bracelet from Colm. Was the one who stole it from the first place in the first place. And then Colm and Niemi join us. And Seth opens up saying like, "Hey, this bracelet is proof that Fado trusted you and your brother, but there's more that Seth isn't telling us."
Yeah. We cut to Grado because we get this. It's a cinematic view. We're not locked into any one perspective in this.
Right.
Where the generals are kind of split into two types. They're like the good old generals and the bad new generals.
Just the new demonic dipshits.
Yeah, here are my sleepy recruits.
Got a guy over here with a milky eye, just licking the blade of a knife.
I always thought about that in terms of what is it, Return of the King or whatever.
Yeah.
Like here, choose between two advisors. Here's Bravery Trueheart and Grimace Wormtongue. Which one do you think you should choose? It's like, well, I'm gonna take the guy with the sunken eyes. With the wet handshake. That's the guy I want on my team. The king has chosen all the people with the wettest handshakes.
Yeah. That's how Scientology works.
Exactly. They have a lot of thetons in that handshake.
Yeah.
So the king is introducing his old classic generals to his skeezy dude with the new people he hangs out with ever since he started doing coke, which includes Walter.
Right. Yeah.
And he sends Walter and Glenn, one of his classic good generals, off to go after Ephraim and Erica. Yes. And Glenn is like, I don't want to do that. No. You get the sense that Walter has a reputation. Everyone kind of knew him, and that is true.
Yes.
So
this takes us to chapter 4, Ancient Evil. We go to this forest of Zaha, where there are no troops. This is our first monster battle that we get.
Yes.
We're in this forest. There are tons of revenants, and I believe this is the map with nope, that's not the fog yet. Continue.
Yeah, we're gonna have the fog soon.
Yeah.
And this is before the monsters became a source of irritation.
Yeah.
To me, where in the beginning of this we see Arthur yes. Leaving his village to warn us about the monsters. And he's a light mage, and he is made to destroy monsters. It's his job. Mm-hmm. And this introduces us to the magic triangle between light, dark, and anima.
Right. Yeah. And this is also the map where you can recruit Lute, who is Arthur's friend. She's a dark mage. She is very fun. Just her dialogue. She is extremely studious.
Studious and arrogant.
Yes.
And again, we're in the realm of archetypes here, right? Like, this isn't Torment. Like, we're not talking about that level of character stuff, but you can get fun archetypes.
Yeah.
Like, Lute is a fun archetype. Yeah. And that's why I favored Lute, because it was fun to have her around. Yeah.
So. Fun is good.
Yep. So partway through the battle, some other troops appear they're unaligned, led by a strange woman who is introducing us our comic relief character for the mid game, which is like these guys. Like, I was really surprised they joined us because it feels like they wandered out of like a different game. Larakel or Rakel or La Rachel.
Larakel or La Rachel is what I call her. Yeah. Let's call her Rachel. It's fine.
Shows up. We don't really know who she is yet. We're going to find out later who she is, but she has 2 bodyguards, and it's very broad comedy.
Yeah.
Like, she is in the TV tropes thing. She is a cloud cuckoo lander.
Ooh, boy.
Is the TV tropes, and then she's got a little barbarian and a guy who's like, this again, and they come and do these little sketches for you, and it's really weird. Like, it's a very strange thing. Like, I ended up actually liking this character eventually.
Yeah.
Reminded me a lot of like Luna Lovegood from the Harry Potter. I know read a different book, etc. But like, that's what she reminded me of.
Yeah.
In this.
Yeah, it's a very pungent character, I think.
Yeah.
Real
cheesy, really chewing the scenery.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. This is the first time I made a note of enemies coming in behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Additionally, we're in a forest, so we learn the benefits of standing in trees. Also, this is a trick that they don't really use very much, but the idea of attacking trees to drop them as bridges.
Yeah. I think it might be unique.
It happens again in one other map.
Okay. It's like Dark Souls 2. There's like 2 trees you have to knock over to form a bridge, but only 2.
Only 2.
This moves on to chapter 5, The Empire's Reach, which takes place in the town of Seraphiu. We see this cleric named Natasha being chased by Grado troops, and she's trying to warn them that the Emperor has changed.
Yes. And this is also the map where we're introduced to Joshua. He is a Myrmidon. He is like this swordsman who specializes in critical attacks, who is on the red team. He is this mercenary. Natasha wants to talk to him. This is incredibly risky because of the crits. I had to restart this mission so much because I knew I wanted him on my team, but he kept on killing Natasha.
Incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
Like the crit, and like making you earn a hidden character is cool, but it's weird that the accepted way to play these games is not to treat these as hidden characters that are a bonus, to just treat it as a matter of course that you're going to recruit everyone. So it's a huge pain to get her to him because she's so squishy. When you get him, he flips a coin and decides to join you. He's got a real Setzer air to him.
He's a compulsive gambler, just like every Fire Emblem fan.
Yep. Got him. Got me in one. Back it up. You did it. He decides to join you and then use his crits for good. He ended up, I had a very, really good luck with his growths. So this ended up being a very powerful character that I used for the whole game.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's accepted or right, or if that's the correct way to play, but that's how it worked out for me.
Yep, I used him as well. He was just fun to have around. I liked his combat animations too.
Oh, they're incredible.
Yeah. When he crits, like the air becomes blade.
Yeah, it's super cool looking.
Yeah.
Oh.
So what's good?
It's like microdosing anime.
A little bit, yeah.
Like the animations in this, it's like, it's usually flashy action, like kind of loses me, but a lot of it's like charging up and yelling out your name and stuff like that. That makes me annoyed. But just getting just a really flat, like one flashy animation for a second, like actually works for me.
Yeah, the style's not bad. It's the content.
Yeah,
this has the style, but good content. Yeah,
and that's really it.
Yeah. So what's weird is like recruiting Joshua is like
is the boss.
Yeah, like everything else just falls down.
Yeah. You know what else is weird? This is the first map with an arena in it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I never did this.
It's so strange. Like, so this is the way that you could grind in previous Fire Emblem games.
Okay.
So people who are like, say, who are angry at the people who say that grinding ruins this game, say you could always grind. You go in, you choose one person to fight, and they just do a fight. Yeah. And if they win, you get money and they get experience.
Okay.
It's something you do while you're trying to save a town or while you're trying to run. It's very weird.
While the world burns.
While the world burns, you take a break to go do. And yes, I know you do that in any game with an arena, basically, but it's literally the enemies are right there.
Yeah.
You just walk into the arena. Because I think that Joshua mentions that he wants to spend some time in the arena, and that's your
gambling.
first hint that it's it's gambling. Yeah. So the enemy, the boss of this is not that difficult. When you talk to Natasha afterwards, she says she served at Kratos' temple and overheard that the Emperor was plotting to destroy the sacred stones, giving him his motivation other than just kind of power. Yeah.
This takes us to our only Gaiden chapter, chapter 5X, The Unbroken Heart, where we get something from Ephraim's perspective before he reunites with everybody else. This starts with Walter and I guess Glenn talking about how they have Ephraim pinned down, but there is a spy in his camp. Dun. Guess what? It's the sleepy looking guy.
Yep. It's the tired legion has come again. So elsewhere, Ephraim and his band, that includes a sleeper agent, decide to retake their home castle, the Renee Castle. Because, and like the little bit Ephraim, before he becomes honorable but good, gets a little bit of character, like he can just say he's like our brash young prince.
Yes.
Or whatever is kind of the archetype we're working with.
This is a very stupid thing to do.
I thought so.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they wouldn't expect it. And I'm like, that does lots of things they wouldn't expect that also wouldn't work. Like this cop is not going to expect me to grab his gun, but it's still not going to end well for me. Right. Like, just because it's the element of surprise, it doesn't mean that it's going to work.
Right.
And you're three dudes. Like you're not representing an army.
No.
Like you're three dudes.
Yeah.
But they do it. They go inside the castle. There's lots of these dark mages that can pick you off through the walls. Luckily, your crew is pretty powerful.
Yes, and luckily, they're not casting status effects on you. It is just that comes later, and boy, oh boy,
status effects are become a big thing late in the game.
Yes, and this chapter ends with us retreating from the castle.
Yep. Yeah. Oh shit! This was dumb the whole time.
Wait.
And you leave, and then Valter knew that this was going to happen because he has as a spy, and he surrounds you with his Wyvern Knights and asks you to beg for your life, and you say, I know what he won't expect, attacking him. So you do that, and then that's what the chapter ends. So
yeah.
Yep.
So chapter 6, Victims of War, we're headed back to Erica, goes to this sparsely populated plain, but Kratos Goobers, they've been tracking her, and they've kind of set up this ambush here. This is the foggy map.
Yeah. Yep. So fog of war in this game, which is cool. Like I always like that in a strategic.
Yeah. I love that. Like if an enemy is in a spot where you're going to move through, it cuts your movement short, and it puts up a little exclamation mark.
When you eventually the enemy mage warps in, the evil general with the sleepy eyes, asks for your bracelet because the Emperor wants it. And he lies to you, and that's one of the things I like about this game. Is the enemy, like we know what happened, but there's a bit of dramatic irony here. Yeah. Says like, no, Ephraim's actually dead. And you're like, oh shit, and we have no reason not to believe that. And then he uses a child as a hostage to get you to hand over the bracelet.
Yes.
Which of course you do because you're a good person and children.
Right. And this is what breaks Erica. Leads her to swear revenge on all of Grado. Although her character doesn't necessarily change as much after this.
No, not very much.
Yeah.
She's extremely naive,
Right.
throughout and for her campaign. So your thief can actually see further in the fog, which helps with the side goal, which is rescuing this family at the far edge of the fog.
Yep.
These civilians are in a mountain clearing.
Right.
And this introduces, there are also giant poison spiders in this game, which also are a weird fandom meme for this game. Like I kept seeing people being like giant spiders, and I'm like, man,
but it's video games. Like it's still, like
Yeah.
even if it's rare for the series, it's still a video game.
yeah, this is very strange.
Weak spots. Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, cool memes. Oh. So.
Yeah. The forces here are nothing special, really. You just have more casters here. I forget if you can get one of them here or if you can buy them from a store before this. But torches are a special kind of staff that will light up certain areas of the map for you. This was a good use for not Vanessa. What's her name? But the cleric that we recruited. Natasha. Yeah, Joshua's lady.
I also really like the way consumables work in this game. There's actually like a holy water thing. I don't think it's called holy water, but that increases your defense.
Yeah.
And they start at a really high level and then decrease 1 for every turn. So they lose effectiveness as you go. Same thing with torches. Like it lights in a certain amount in a direction and then will slow, light a little bit less every turn.
Yeah.
Kind of neat. And I ended up actually using those waters quite a bit late in the game where I needed to make somebody practically invincible to get to an area. So,
yep.
yeah. So this is when Seth actually tells you what the bracelets are. You and Ephraim's bracelets are the key to the sacred stone in Renee Castle. So, okay, good to know.
Yeah.
And we rush to Renval to rescue Ephraim because we assume that he's not actually dead.
Right.
We're going to go check him before he's executed. The sleepy mage might have actually dropped that. We might have called his bluff and been like, oh, you're right. I don't remember exactly.
I have no reason to tell you the truth, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're us demon advisors are known for our honesty.
if you can hold my arm behind my back and say my true name.
Yeah.
So we head over there to this kind of 2-part climax of this first act here. Chapter 7, Waterside Renval. This is a cool map. I like this quite a bit because you're trying to get to the castle. It's kind of out on this little outcropping, like on a cliff. And most of the map is covered by these artillery, which you need to prioritize because, they're going to start picking you off, especially if you have flying units that may take a shortcut that you may be inclined to use to take a shortcut, up to the gate.
Yeah. It's one of the ways that like the being closer to perfect knowledge like really serves this game. Like the fact that you can scout that out in advance just with your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can kind of guess that, even though we have not seen Ballista yet. So it's very possible for you to send a shortcut unit up there, just have them get one shot and be like, well, time for restart or time for funeral. One or the other.
time for funeral.
It's time for funeral.
I guess I have to walk to the cemetery now.
A funeral emblem. Like it just so the castle has 2 spearmen and 2 archers guarding it, which is pretty tough. Like they've actually kind of set up a defensive formation, which I like. And then the enemy general here has really high armor. So this is the first boss that I remember having to like tag team him. Yeah. Send everyone who could survive a hit at him and taking multiple hits to get him.
Yeah. Rescuing is good for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So once we get inside, Erica and Seth see Orson, who is the sleepy betrayer, the sleepy agent.
That's my least favorite D&D module.
Yeah, the sleepy betrayer. Yeah. Guy gets lost on that one. We think that he is, we don't mistake him for an enemy soldier. We know him. Like at first we're just like, he's like, oh, I didn't expect to see you here. And then you're like, no, we're here. Where is Ephraim? He's like, I'll show you. He's down in the dungeon. Yeah. But then you call his bluff.
Yeah, like a bunch of stuff doesn't make any sense. Like if you guys have this castle, why were all those dudes outside fighting us? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And this takes us to chapter 8. It's a trap. Memes.
Yep. Memes. Yeah. So inside the castle, Orson tells Erica that she should give up the bracelet because she's in danger while she holds it. Seth kind of calls his bluff. Says, hey, I'm going to need you to hand over your weapons. It's a super cool moment. Seth is neat. Reinforcements show up. And we find out that Orson betrayed Renee to reunite with his departed wife, presumably through demon powers.
Yes.
There's a demon lord at play. We'll learn that later, but just know that there's a demon lord in play.
Yeah, it's cooler when it's hinted at as opposed to explicated.
Once it becomes explicit, it's extremely dumb.
Yeah.
Like we crash into a big fucking like just a truck full of cliches spills on us on the highway. Like as soon as this gets explicit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we're carrying a bunch of like cups of barbecue sauce up the stairs, and like it gets 2 stairs from the end. It's like, oh no, it's everywhere.
Yep. Yeah. As you do.
Yeah. Carrying cups of barbecue sauce.
Gotta give barbecue sauce to my attic stooge.
Yeah.
Like you only eat sauce. He's the sauce boss.
It's what keeps him sleepy.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a cool mission. I like this quite a bit because you start with Erica's troops in the bottom right of the map, and you think, oh God, I am way outnumbered here. But Ephraim and his dudes show up from the bottom left, and you can unite and make this either make a unified push toward the throne or split around.
Yeah. Yep. It's cool to have you get reinforcements, after you've seen it happen. This is also where we're introduced to Myr, who is a young dragon girl.
Yes.
She's got, and the previous other entries in the series, there's lots of like dragons and dragon people and stuff. That is a series thing. So that's here. Yep. And we kind of learn, at the end of here, after we've fought Toredo, who's Valter's lieutenant, we learn that something big and dark and vast is approaching.
Yes.
So the demon's on his way. The demon is rising. The gates are open.
Yes. And there's going to be a lot of Myr just kind of obliquely talking about the dark energy to the south.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to have a story segment here. This is labeled as Chapter 9, A New Journey, but this is going to set up kind of the middle act of this game.
Yes. And this is also where we're going to kind of pick up the pace, and I will follow my sword about that. I did not take notes for mine, so I remember things about these missions. I have a reference here, but I did not take as detailed notes as Cole did because I was playing in bed exclusively.
Yeah.
Yeah. So apologies for that, but we are going to pick up the pace here a little bit. Also, long episode.
Yeah. So we're back in town. Ephraim and Erica, they're back together and they're recalling the old times. We've seen Lion or Leon. What do we want to say? I want to say Lion, but
I say Lion. I've seen people pronounce it as Leon on YouTube or whatever, but I'll say Lion.
Yeah,
that's what I'm gonna say when I see those letters.
Yeah, same. Lion makes sense to me. But yeah, they're recalling back to a time with Lion, the son of Emperor Grado, kind of talking about what they planned, to pray for, what their plans are for when they succeed their fathers. So we're about halfway through, and this is kind of where we're getting at the emotional core of this.
Yeah, it took a long time for us to get here, and we did the small stake stuff in this first act with the people, really, and we're gonna change focus away from that.
Yeah.
For this kind of middle section in a way that I don't think necessarily serves the game.
Yeah.
I also don't like Lion as a character.
No.
At least in Erica's thing, I don't know how much it changed. He is just not very interesting.
Right.
And this is also something that the fandom's really divided on. People love this character. They're like, this is a really well-developed antagonist. Like, he meant to do well, and he didn't. And to me, that's just like, have you read fiction? It's like, this is this is a real straight putt of a character who makes a Faustian bargain to try to do well and gets taken over by a demon. Like, this is a tale literally as old as stories.
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough new here to really grasp onto, and there's not enough individual characterization to lie on, to really get my heart at all.
Yeah.
So,
agreed.
My understanding is there's a little bit more with him in Ephraim's tale.
Yeah, a little bit. He more just kind of shows up to twist various knives on you. Yeah. That's pretty much it. So we're back in the present where we've returned to Frelia with Princess Tana and her brother Innes. And we're just kind of talking about, hey, what's the plan here? Erica reports saying hey, King of Frelia, Great is attempting to destroy all of the sacred stones. That explains, the way the army is moving. And everybody is like, oh, that old fairy tale, blah, blah, blah. You mean the fairy tales about the artifacts that you protect with your lives? Yeah.
Yeah. The entire thing we build our castles around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Myr's story, she talks about she encountered the Grado. This corroborates this. We find out that she is part Manakete, which is this half demon, like actually kind of like half dragon race that lives in the Darkling Woods. We'll learn more about her later.
Right.
She was lured into a trap because she felt this dark presence coming from Grado.
Right.
So, and again, this is kind of like set as a reveal. It's just characters telling each other stuff the player already knows.
Yeah.
This would be kind of cool if Grado's motivations at this point were still a mystery. But we've seen Grado a lot. Like we've seen the king, talk about this. We've seen him turn dark. So like, it's a little bit weird narratively to repeat this ground.
Yeah. So a soldier appears, a herald comes in saying, hey, Grado's forces have actually sacked the tower where we keep our stones. Like, it's really weird we had everybody over here when the stone was over there. Yeah. So
sir, we're idiots. Like,
excuse me,
we're not
sir.
Smart, sir. Yeah. Excuse me, sir. We were looking, sir.
No excuse, sir. So the plan is to split up. We have Ephraim charged directly into Grado because that worked out really great last time. And Erica will go into Rouston to try and protect one of the remaining sacred stones over there. My impression is that whoever you pick as the character you follow gets Seth.
Gets everyone.
Not
just everyone. Gets everyone you've recruited so far.
Yeah.
And you get the same recruits. You just get them in different ways.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's my understanding. So it's a little weird. Like it's not, you're getting different content, but you're getting a lot of the same mechanics, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, whoever the army just goes with whoever.
Yeah.
At this point. So this is where it opens up. You get to make your branching path here. A tower opens up as a monster dungeon. The world map opens up where monsters appear on the world map, so you can grind and backtrack if you'd like. Cole took Ephraim's route. I took Erica's route. And we'll be kind of going back and forth with those. And again, a little bit quicker just because of my lack of notes, which I do apologize for. But I was a sleepy boy in bed. I was slowly turning into a Valter.
Oh, no.
So if you looked at my eyes, you'd be like, who's that sleepy evil man?
So let's start going back and forth here. Gary, what happens in your Chapter 9, Distant Blade?
So we are trying to get to, what's its head? Rouston. Go Roustons. Trying to go to Rouston. So we're going to go through the ship through Carsino in the port city of Karis. And head there. Carsino is supposed to be it's ruled by a council of merchants. Like, it's not a very developed kingdom out of these 5. I don't think we get a recruit from it. And the idea is, since they're allies, we can say a lot of here. But when we come here, not the case. They have actually, they've pledged to support Freya. They actually have not. So we end up having to fight a bunch of pirates here on the way out to try to get a ship. We do not do so. Instead, you fight this boss, this guy named Binks, who is a axe guy who has a bow as kind of backup, which is kind of the trick.
It's a word combo
here. And then we can run into an enemy unit, Amelia, who we can recruit here as well.
Yeah.
So I think that we get the same units.
Yes,
here.
Amelia is recruitable in my mission 9 as well. I could not find a use for her. She was just absurdly fragile.
Yeah. I think she is a starts fragile gets good unit is kind of the idea. Yeah. You have to talk to her, and she's just kind of like a shy general. She doesn't really want to fight, and basically you talk to her. It's almost like you bully her into joining you. It's very weird. Yeah. You're just kind of like, yeah, but what if you joined us instead? And she's like, and she does it basically. And that's basically it. Like, we are not able to grab the ship. We fight some pirates. It's a little inconsequential.
Yeah.
There. So,
my mission is it's a little bit bigger. It's actually a really cool map. So we are headed over again into Grado itself. We get a little scene with the Emperor sending out more of his people, but there's one of his generals, Dusel, who is one of the old guard. He's not one of the sleepy new dipshits. Who's like, yeah, this is no good. Like, what do we gain? Like, every kingdom around us is in chaos. This is going to go back to us. None of this makes any sense. Eventually, we're going to be recruiting Dusel. Fort Rigwald is where we're going to go to first. This is guarded by somebody named Deb. Dheb.
Hey, Deb.
Hi, Deb. And he's this big old guy who has captured this Pegasus Knight. I already have a Pegasus Knight. She is really hard to recruit because enemies can just attack her through the walls, which is a fucked up thing to do to a prisoner.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah. Are they fair?
But this map is really neat because it's got a meat grinder in it. There's really only one way into the castle, and it's this main hall with two kind of like access holes off to the side that have casters and archers inside them. So like getting through that is a really big deal. And figuring out like what order of operations, like do I send fragile range people in to take them out through the wall? Do I send my tanks up to run around the side and then clear the way? That's ultimately what I ended up doing, but it's like a really neat design conceit. Pretty good. And there are casters here. This is the first mission where you get status effects, at least the one non-poison status effects. Yeah, casters can just put you asleep from across the map.
That's a bummer.
And knock you out, knock that unit out for about 4 turns. Which, if they put you to sleep in the middle of a big scrum, guess what? That character prop gonna die. So
yeah. Pretty big bummer.
Yeah, but Ephraim questions prisoner. Hey, General Dussel opposes the war. We like literally just need to go talk to him. And it was not the king; it was Prince Lion who convinced Grado to invade.
Yes.
And the Emperor is just throwing every general at us that we can.
Yes. Yep. And our end, we move forward through Carsino. We don't get on the ship, but Carsino betrays us and joined with the Grado. And they have stopped Prince Ennis, blocking his way, to move further. So we have to go rescue him. So we're introduced to a bunch of characters in this. There's a Ennis, we can actually grab him at this point. Having anyone talk to him who's a sniper, I ended up using him quite a bit. And then there is this mercenary troop, which has Garrick, who is a mercenary class, who is pretty strong.
Yep.
You can go grab him, and then you can. He has a dancer with him. This is the first time we found a dancer. The way dancers work in this is their move is to give somebody else an extra move.
Yeah.
So you can send them in with a powerful unit to kind of juice that unit.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Ended up falling off my use case. I think she might be, those we lost. At some point, I think she might have died and isn't in the arms of the angel. Kind of real at the end. And then finally, there is an enemy who is hired to work for the mercenaries of Carsino, named Marissa, who actually is part of Garrick's company. So if Garrick talks to her, you can recruit her. I just read about that, though. I did not recruit her because she has a Myrmidon. I already had a good Myrmidon, and getting Garrick over to her was obnoxious. The actual map, there are a couple of different kind of strongholds there, and the main person we're fighting is Pablo, who is the quizzling member of the Carsino Council, who is trying to convince everyone to join Grado here. So you have to go take him out. He is a caster, which is kind of cool to fight this. He's a sage at this point, which makes like approaching him difficult. He was somebody I ended up doing drive-by with ranged members myself, who could survive the assault.
Makes sense.
So yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
He attempted to kill Ennis and was unable to. The mercenaries here are real weird. I ended up liking them, but they're just more like Ennis orders them to continue forward and abandon him so they don't die, and they're just like noble kind of out of nowhere. Just kind of join him.
Nobility,
like a mercenary.
Nobility and loyalty, two traits that I really associate with mercenaries.
Yeah. Like they end up being kind of fun characters, but I don't, they're kind of good for the sake of being good.
Yes.
So
yeah. My chapter 10 is turning traitor. We get to this town, and as we approach Grado, we have these earthquakes coming in. This is the mission where you can recruit Dussel because he's left out in the cold. Dussel is the person who trained Ephraim in lance fighting. So Ephraim, like, hey, he wouldn't go along with this. I know him. And, Selena drops the dime on him, saying like, hey, you've got these second thoughts. We can't have this. I'm taking this over. But then Walter arrives, relieves Selena of duty because she is not sufficiently loyal as well. So we're in this town, and the mission is to survive 10 rounds. It's a pretty difficult map because you're starting outside the town, and you have to work your way in because a bunch of flying units are going to come in from the north. Recruiting Dusel is good. It gets you another mounted guy, and he can use a bunch of different kinds of weapons. I don't know about his growths. He just was generally useful to me. So, And something that is kind of crazy about this, you've got ships that are off the shore, and they can just bombard in this pretty wide range. So it's like the artillery, but you can't get to it to stop it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, don't bring any flying characters into this because they are vulnerable to that. But yeah, at the end of those 10 turns, the replacement general who came in to relieve Selena is like, hey, nothing's worth this. He runs away. And when you talk to Dusel, he says, hey, things took a turn, when Grado and Lion created something called the Dark Stone, which is this artifact here that is said to be more powerful than the sacred stones. And this is where Rachel shows up and says, hey, if you guys are waiting for a ship, nobody is going out because, there's this phantom ship that is probably in the seas. People are too afraid to sail. But we get a ship anyway. And that'll be our next mission. But what's your chapter 11?
This is, another, Peter Francis DeRacy is my chapter 11. With the bankruptcy info tapes.
What?
That's a local commercial to the Midwest. I thought we had talked about Peter Francis DeRacy at some point.
No, I've been.
He's a local commercial about filing Chapter 11.
Gotcha.
And he asks you to call him for your free bankruptcy info tapes, which is a phrase that is
Cool.
stuck in kids of a certain age from Illinois. Well, that phrase, I just activated them. So, so this is felt like a kind of shitty filler chapter. I forgot to mention that we met a character named Ewan at the last one who's like, hey, I can actually get you to where you're going. There's a secret pass through Caer Palin, this mountain range. You head up there, and basically it's just chock full of monsters. The kind of big gimmick here, it is an indoor-outdoor map, which is cool. They have that kind of mix, and you fight a lot of monsters that have poison weapons. So you're introduced to a lot of poison status effects, and we also get La Rachel and Dozla,
Gotcha.
her berserker buddy. But the plot is not advanced.
No.
During this thing, it is a fog of war map with poison weapons. It's very gimmicky, and you fight a lot of just monsters, just tons of reinforcements of bone walkers, which are skeletons that are not hard to beat. You just fight tons of them. So it's pretty disappointing, actually. It's there's not a whole lot to it. So and that's going to be kind of a theme, really. I'm going to do also just monster fighting is going to happen. So
yeah, that's kind of how I feel about my chapter 11, the Phantom Ship, which I should by all rights love. It's an interesting fight. It just doesn't advance anything. So we're on this boat. Before we get there, though, Selena goes back to Grado to beg for forgiveness, but he sends her over to recover this dragon stone. That's where eventually we're going to find her. But we're on this boat, and interestingly, everything is foggy and there's nowhere really to go. There are just some flying monsters that approach. After a couple of turns, another ship starts approaching, and we can see them, and more will come over. And then after another turn, it will actually kind of dock with us, and planks will be across. And this is just a map where you have to kill every monster as they kind of try to board your ship. Some of them are flying eyeballs and things like that. It's a cool fight because it is basically just two opposing platforms with bottlenecks, which is neat. This is where the mercenaries, the Rachel and all those show up as well to join us. And she pledges herself to our cause because she is the Princess of Roustan. Remember, she is the incredibly goofy character. He's kind of like a Don Quixote kind of figure, going around just vanquishing evil from the land, etc.
Yeah. Yep. I have another, what feels like a filler chapter. I'm getting into the dragon stuff. I think that's basically what Erica her path does. That Ewan character who sent us here, we up through this mountain pass, we're heading to the Village of Silence. We're introduced to this character named Sela, who knows Myrrh. They're both from the same kind of order here. And Ewan actually joins us, so he's the magic pupil class, like trainee class. So he's the low-level magic character, so he's probably good if I put a lot of points into him. I did not.
Right.
And you fight a lot of monsters. Like this was driving me nuts. Like I was pulling my hair out at this point of the thing where none of the politics were in play. Just a little bit of mythology, but then, hey, we have to move through this mountain pass. The kind of gimmick here is that it is like a path through the mountains. So you have a very limited kind of play field. It's really easy for you or the enemy to make bottlenecks. But the enemy often would just kind of go over mountains and take 1,000 turns to do it.
Ugh.
So, they were not flying units. It was pretty frustrating. You get Sela, who is pretty good. Sela is an interesting character. Not interesting, but effective.
Yeah.
Right. As a sage, good magic user. You also, one of the houses gives you the barrier staff, which is a positive status effect, a buff.
Oh, yeah.
And weirdly, super good, like really powerful, and also allows a magic character to gain experience without healing someone or being in danger.
It's weird that we're more than halfway through the game before we get that.
Yeah, they introduced status stuff and buffs and everything very late in this. Like that simplicity, again, is not my all-time favorite thing.
Yeah.
So... but yeah, there's like it's fairly plot neutral. We're introduced to characters who are going to be very important to exposition later, but there's just a lot of talk about omens and evils and dark woods and making our way to the Darkling Woods.
Yeah.
And I'm losing my mind about how little this has to do with the cool geopolitics shit that we had done.
Yeah, it looks like I got all of that. Because like we're on a journey into hostile territory, and like the way this climaxes is cool and good.
In retrospect, that sounded way cooler to me.
Yes.
So
yeah. I don't mean to brag, but
I mean, I don't know. Like, it wouldn't be Fire Emblem if you weren't bragging about a coin flip. So So feeling good about a
devastating.
Good about a thing that has 50% chance. So yeah.
So my chapter 12 is called Landing at Teisel. This is on the other shore here. Ephraim and Seth are kind of like arguing about like the best way to proceed. When a bunch of greater troops swarm in, they've been waiting for us. They know everything. They see everything. They can do everything. This is where the creepy general, like Invaz or something like that. I call him the creepy general because like a hunched over guy who's like wringing his hands like a fly. Yeah.
So it's very Renfield.
Yes. And gives the current general here his leave of absence and says, I can use my friends. He floods the town with monsters, in addition to some of the regular folks around here. And this is a huge map. You start out on the ship and you've got like 2 docks on either side. They're like little like fortifications that you have to break. By fortifications, I just mean like little enclaves of dudes that are in bottlenecks that will surround you if you do not approach them in the right way. This is the map where I get Ewan. He is looking for a woman named Marissa who is fighting for Grado. It's funny because Marissa is this mercenary and he recruits her by saying, oh, the orders got mixed up. You're supposed to fight for these guys. So he literally pulls a duck season, rabbit season on her.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty good. But this is just a long and grinding fight. It feels like it advances things just a little bit more because, again, we're in this town. We are seeing what Grado is willing to do to its own people. The advancement here is that Myrrh runs away at the end of this.
Yeah. I move on to Hamel Canyon. This is where we're kind of back in it. This is on our way to what is the name of this? Johanna. The home. We finally made it here. And it is like a large desert map, like really huge map as well, very open here. And this is kind of the climax of the Pablo plot, the Carcina betrayal plot, where we finally get to put that guy out of his misery. One of the Grado generals comes up to us, Cormag, who is kind of a famous character in this zone. We can recruit him. He is pretty good. It's a defense chapter, so we have to hold out for a certain number of turns, or kill a specific AS, who is one of the generals, and that will end the chapter.
Okay.
So killing them really early, Cormag ends up showing up, so that cheats us out of Cormag, which is a bummer. And AS is hard. So, he's got a kind of upgrade weapons. He's got a short spear and a silver blade and a sword slayer. Like, he's very tricky.
Yeah.
So he's really good against sword players, since Joshua is mainly my like crit demon for a lot of bosses. Like, that was dangerous.
Yeah.
As it is. And we get some of those, we kind of switch back to some of those machinations with Valter and such. This is when he starts really creeping on Erica.
Yeah.
Being disgusting, like, you're my girl, you have to be strong for me, like talking to her as if she's not there. And Cormag is getting fed up with his shit.
Yuck.
Which I appreciate.
That's good.
Yeah, but basically we learn that the Pablo's attempt to turn Carcino against the rest of the world has basically failed. So the Elder of Carcino is crushing the rebels. Pablo's faction has retreated, and that's why we fight him here.
That's good.
So, yeah, it's kind of, you go back into that geopolitics stuff, which I appreciate.
Yeah. When it's playing in that space, I'm good. I like that.
Yeah. Me too. And it's other than that, though, it's a survival map.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically turtled up and then also made the attempt to go grab Cormag.
Yeah.
So, Cormag is pretty good.
Nice. My chapter 13 was Florspar's Oath. Each of these generals that works for Grado kind of has a nickname based on a gemstone. Florspar Selena. She is this female general that we have seen before. She's conflicted, although she has this just dying loyalty, or undying loyalty rather, to Grado, specifically because Grado, the king, when he was good, like saved her town, So we're at this marsh. She's here to get the Dragonstone. Mur approaches Selena's like, "Hey, can I have that back?" And Mur says, like, "Hey, this darkness that your king is playing with is incredibly powerful. The emperor that you knew is gone." But Selena will not turn her back on him. We end up having to fight her when Ephraim and Seth approach. Selena can control thunderstorms when you get close, which is weird. She just has like a thunder spell that has a very high reach. This whole map is like a big spiral. Like, she is resting at the center of it. You are on the outside corner and you have to make your way into the center the long way. And also this is a map where you have to kill 44 enemies, including her. Yeah. You have to like wipe this entire map that is incredibly densely populated. It's a little bit it's buoyed because it's an interesting map design. It's buoyed by Selena's story being good. I like her as a character, but boy, it's a lot. I tried to talk to her to recruit her. I'm happy that you can't. You have to wait until the creature campaign, like the post game kind of thing, to do that, where there is no story. You're just going around. But yeah, you end up killing her, and it's a bummer because she was a good person who just worked for bad people.
The final individual chapter here, Queen of the White Dunes, is pretty good. Large indoor castle map. In the last thing, we had some reinforcements from Ralston, who came and helped us fight off the rest of Carcino's dregs. But we have to go to Gehenna Hall, which is still under siege. And this is kind of interesting. The hall has been captured by Grado, and we want to rescue the queen. But the queen was betrayed by one of her own generals, a real creep named Carlisle, who was this guy who was one of her generals who was always in love with her and took the Grado option to like basically have her. They have this dialogue where he talks about how he's always loved her and stuff. He thought he would be fine being her servant, but cannot. So basically gross incel shit. And you murder him for it, which is good and appropriate. But mostly it is just kind of going through, narrow hallways. The same thing with distance, range fighters shooting over walls, that kind of thing. We get a lot of flashbacks with Lion in this, kind of trying to set up that relationship between her and Erica, and eventually Lion does show up at this point, and he is Erica does not do the thing where he figures out that he's gone evil, and this will have huge effects later, but just kind of is Lion, you have to be good, and it's like, well, he's speaking with a demon voice and saying extremely evil things. An interesting thing too is there's a thief character in this that you can recruit called Rennick, who, if you talk with Raquel, you can recruit him for free, but otherwise you have to pay him.
Oh yeah.
Which I think is kind of interesting, but I definitely don't need a second thief.
No, I've got Colm.
At this point. Yeah, I barely use Colm, so yeah.
But he can disappear forever. Like he can just escape after getting his payday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah. And there's a lot of dialogue in this chapter about that kind of setup and everything. Yeah. So this is, again, it's back into that world state, kind of just dealing with this other kingdom that we have not spent very much time on. Yeah. They have their own kind of little side story here that is interesting. Tactically, it basically felt like any kind of hallway-rich indoor map. Yes, to me.
That so the lion who showed up for you is not actually Lion. That is the Demon King pretending to be Lion.
Oh yeah. Well, he's eating his soul, like as we'll find out soon. Like he's possessing him, but he's like eating his soul. So it is Lion. It's Lion's body.
No, it's not Lion's body. It is like a manifestation. It is weird and dumb.
Okay. Do we later find him?
Yeah. The real Lion is over here in my chapter. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
I might have missed that or forgotten it.
Yeah. The way that it articulates and like just doubles back on itself is not that great to me, actually.
Yeah.
But this takes us to chapter 14, Father and Son, where we're actually at the castle. We're at Grado Castle. Ephraim kind of gets this recollection of Lion asking him for lance lessons. And this really sets up like the inferiority complex relationship that Lion has. He really admires how strong Ephraim and Erica are. And he wants to be, to be strong, to have the strength to be a leader. He's really worried about having the strength, so he needs to get stronger. Cliche. So this is an interesting map. There are several gates here that are heavily guarded, so you have to pass through these bottlenecks. The throne room has some casters. This is very, very frustrating. That will berserk you. Cast berserk on some of your dudes, making them attack your own people. If you're leading with your strongest folks, what happens is there's just a random chance that they will be turned into a murder monster for 4 turns. Thereabouts, and a berserked ally is still treated as an ally for movement purposes. So even if you have all of your most vulnerable people like bulwarked behind you, they'll just run through and kill them.
That is a huge bummer.
Yeah. It's almost it is shocking that it got through testing.
Yeah. That's frustrating.
That's how I feel about it.
That is very frustrating. Like lots of quick loading, I imagine.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But no, you're trying to seize the throne from Vigard, the emperor. But when you go and take him out, his corpse disintegrates. And a conversation with Lion as he approaches, with his hair all disheveled and looking all sleepy, reveals that Vigard was already dead. He died 6 months ago.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Like I like that kind of thing.
So Lion wants to take over the world. And right now, as he's talking, he says he only befriended Ephraim and Erica to learn the weaknesses of Renai. Then he teleports away. So I never liked you anyway. Nah. At this point, you've captured the castle, and like this dark alchemist, Noel approaches and explains, like, Vigard, he died of this illness. And Lion turned the Grado Stone, which was the fire emblem, into this dark stone to resurrect his dad. And and like all of these basically all the resources of Grado were tuned to this. And that is the source of all this dark energy that Myrrh can sense. And they take us deep into the castle where the emblem was housed, and we get the first pair of these weapons, a tome called Glepnir and an axe called Garm, which none of my characters could use.
Garm and Glepnir, the classic comedy duo. The super weapons that you get in this are cool. They attack double.
Yes.
In this game, so if you get a double attack, you get to attack 4 times.
Love it.
Which is pretty rad.
Yeah.
Yep.
But this
Christ. Jeez, Frankenstein.
Frankenstein awakens.
Yeah.
So at the end of this, a herald arrives, saying like, "Hey, the remaining generals have cornered Erica and Inez at Gehenna Hall, so we're going to go up and meet you and rescue you."
And we now move to chapter 15, where we rejoin. Scorched Sand. So this is a sand map. Mounted units are not able to do much. They move very slowly. In this. So Seth says, hey, we should bring magicians and flying units to this.
So I'm interested to see if this was different for you. For me, Erica was in the north, and then we had kind of these two encampments with Kalak in the northeast, in the northwest rather, and Volter in the southeast.
Yeah, I think these are the same for us from this point out.
Nice.
So yeah, I started there. So you know, and and you can, you know, at this point you get both of them eventually. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So, Erica on her own is not strong enough to take out either of the two sides. Or I guess the lord that you're not playing as is not strong enough to take out either of the two sides on their own. So you do have to do a little bit of maneuvering to meet up. But otherwise, you want to clear out all of the enemies and kill both of these two generals.
There are more swarms that will come in.
Yeah.
During this, through this sand, there's this big morass of sand in kind of the center, which if you get out there, you get some items, but it's a pain to get out there.
Yeah.
And you just have to kill everyone. And then once you do, you get the other two weapons that you didn't get. I forgot to mention them, but I also grabbed two weapons.
Yes.
So this gives you the four new weapons are just different types. So they have the similar properties. They also do a stat boost.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it'll be like +5 defense or what have you.
The Lord fights are interesting. Volter goes down without too much trouble. Kalak, he used to roll around with Joshua or Myrmidon. So you want to send Joshua in to get that dialogue. At least I did. But Kalak carries a weapon or carries an item that prevents critical attacks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Additionally, he can throw axes at you. It's really tough if you do what the story tells you to.
Steal it.
Yeah.
If an enemy has a specific like status affecting or protecting item, you can actually send in a thief. It's tricky to do so, but if that's what I ended up doing for him, is sending Coleman.
Yeah.
At this point, who was not, I had used for a while, eventually stopped leveling, but I think you stopped leveling him like right at this point. But I didn't remember using him for this.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. So when we talk about our experiences with Lion, I had talked to the projection, you had talked to the real one, who was, definitely making the actual evil choices, and they kind of compare notes. And we realized that our only hope is to use the remaining sacred stones against this dark stone.
Right.
Moving on to chapter 16, ruled by magic or madness.
I love this chapter.
Yeah, this is neat.
Yeah. So Orson, remember our sleepy trader from before, he has been manning the remains of Renee since he betrayed us, and he has lost his mind with grief. His wife died 6 months ago. Recall, he talked about that being the source of his betrayal. He will not leave his room, and when we see him, he is actually talking to her, and we never see what she looks like, but it is implied to not be good.
Yeah. Which I love that. That's incredibly cool.
Yes.
That is a trope I am down for.
But Lion is just manipulating him. It's real bad. Yeah.
Lion's a real piece of shit. And not like a three-dimensional character that I really like.
No.
Very much. Sorry, fandom.
Yeah.
So then, we do another fight here. There is in a very well-guarded castle. Some of the layouts of these castles are very funny. They look like Rampart levels to me.
Yeah.
Just really randomly created castles in the Rampart engine.
Yeah.
And it's really well guarded, but we have to make our way.
There's like a short way in that's through a bunch of trees and like mountains and stuff, and through the back. There's a long way that takes you through more, but more people can get through it. And the throne is just completely surrounded by healers.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Myrrh joined us here.
Oh yeah.
If I recall, and Myrrh has a dragon stone, which is incredibly powerful. Like, has 50 uses, is unique as far as I remember, but gives you huge bonuses. So her actual base stats are really crappy, but then she has like really, really low strength, but she gets like +10 or +15 strength. Yeah. Just because she has this dragon stone. It's pretty incredible.
And she turns into it lets her turn into a dragon to attack and defend.
Yeah. Yep. Which was my boss killer from here on out.
Oh yeah.
Basically. So.
Yeah. So you go and you kill Orson, and Ephraim mercy kills Orson's wife, basically saying, he was mad, but I think he was happy, which is not good. It's not a compliment, but it is a good line.
Yeah.
And so the people of the kingdom hail us as heroes. We have taken Renee back. And, Seth says, hey, go use your bracelets, open up that stone chamber, get them weapons, and get that stone, and also get your upgrades. So you turn into Great Lords, which means you grow horses between your legs.
Between your legs. This is, this and a couple missions before this is when everyone is starting to upgrade.
Yeah.
At this point. So there are individual choices we made for individual units, but like, I don't know, it doesn't feel as consequential, and we're dealing with so many units, even on just in play.
Yeah.
Like, not just are there like 25 characters or whatever in the game, but on an individual map, you field 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Characters. So it's like I don't have the specifics of that in front of me. Which ones I did, but I know that's important, but I did it in a way that allowed me to scoot through. Yeah, basically. So the you become a Great Lord, which are very powerful, and having horses, and we have to go to Rouston to get its stone. Which moves us on to chapter 17, the River of Regrets.
We are now in the final act, where we are going to be dealing with Lion more directly, getting into the end game here, and this is where the cliches start Kool-Aid Manning through the walls.
Yeah, kind of piling up.
Yeah.
There.
So, River of Regrets starts out with another flashback. Again, I'm just not here for these. The twins, ask Lion, like, hey, is it such a good idea for you to be doing as much with that stone as you're doing? And Lion is, like at this point, he's not using it to resurrect his dad. He's using it to cure his dad.
Yeah. Well, and this is where he reveals, like, I didn't tell you guys, but actually there was a woman who was horribly burned that I already healed.
Yes.
With the stone. Like, it works. And it's just, it's a Faustian bargain story. It's a real straight up the middle. Yep. Like, tempted to use this power to take a shortcut. Like, it's the theming is very obvious. Yeah. Like, there are no shortcuts in any of this stuff. And if you're not confident, if you're insecure about this stuff, it is dangerous to offer power to somebody who is going to like take those ethical shortcuts. Yeah. And
just the usual moral, do not rage against death. Do not try to subvert it, or else it will corrupt you and everyone around you.
Yep. So path to hell is paved with some kind of intentions. I can't remember how the phrase goes. It's only one of the oldest bits of conventional wisdom in history of words.
Yes. So anyway, Frelia's border guard is under attack, and Lion appears to us. And like at this point, it's either Erica or Ephraim who says, like, hey, this isn't like you, just reveal yourself. What's actually going on? Lion's text box changes, and he says, I am in fact the Demon King, and your friend Lion is gone. This is a lie. It's a little bit confusing. How like when he goes back and forth, and there's a lot of Sturm and Drang around it, but yeah, he is he is convincing you that he is the Demon King. Yeah, he goes Ga Eve of evil is what he actually says. It is really silly. So yeah. And Erica is very slow on the uptake. Yes. Of this, like he's just going evil, and Erica is like, "What's happening? Are you okay?" And keeps doing it, and he's like, "I was wrong to disregard the value of petty human emotions." And she's like, "What's going on, Lion? Can I get you a Tums?"
She is so painfully naive during this that it is incredibly frustrating. Yeah. So no good. Yeah. Good. No. So your goal here is to kill Lion. You have to cross this river. There are bridge bottlenecks kind of across the map where you're going to be loaded right into a bunch of Wyvern Knights. And the middle island has some river folk on it, and a Frelian general whose name I did not write down. Serene.
Serene. There we go. Yep.
Yeah. Who is a Falcon Knight or a Falco Knight. Der Commissar is in town. And is very, very useful if you don't already have a good person in this slot. Right. Like, basically. Yeah. So, so Ephraim, eventually finds the Demon King here. Otherwise it's just monsters. Yeah. Monsters, for things. The Demon King gets away. And we get 2 more weapons. Right.
Taking us to chapter 18, 2 Faces of Evil.
Yep, aka more monsters and more eggs. Yeah, Monster Mountain. So we're just trying to track down Lion's body, trying to find it. We head north to Mount Nellerus, which is a volcano full of Gorgon eggs. And, depending on who your I think this is who your main character is. So in yours, Ephraim is obsessed with getting Lion back. In mine, Erica was your main character.
Yeah.
Really wants to get Lion back. But you were lured into this trap because it is just dealing with these monster eggs that slowly will hatch on a timer and become Gorgons, which are really nasty monsters that can inflict a pretty nasty status effect on you.
Yeah. So you want to kill them while they're eggs before they hatch, but regardless, you do have to clear this map.
Yeah. Not my favorite thing in the world.
No.
I'm not that interested in fighting monsters.
No. Which is weird.
Yeah, well, it just, I don't know. They don't play into the plot very much.
Nope,
it plays into the plot of the Demon King and stuff, but this is, it is just that media's obsession with having an 11th hour big bad who comes in that doesn't have a personality. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So your main character corners the Demon King, but gets paralyzed. And this is where Lion crushes the Renee Stone and says, hey, that whole Demon King thing was an act. I needed people to not question my actions. If people thought I was possessed, they really, wouldn't fight against me. It's really weird the way he does it, but it's still happening. The Demon King is devouring his soul slowly but surely. It is just not done yet. And it's, underlines the fact that all this time he has been acting under his own steam, his own motivation, being tempted by this, horrible grief that he has and being tempted by the, the power that is being offered. But Lion is not a good person.
No, the Demon King is really nursing that lion.
Yeah.
Like he's just really doing slow sips, like basically the entire time. So chug, my dude. Like this whole like he's possessed, he's not possessed, he's possessed, he's not possessed thing is deeply irritating to me.
Yeah,
I do not like it. So he says when he is a lion, he says, "I want you to kill me when I get to the Darkling Woods. I'm going to perform this ritual." So we go to 19, the Last Hope here, where we go to the Rouston Court to grab the final stone so we can do this. And the hunched over Renfield evil general attacks here. This is the climax of him.
Yeah.
And it's a survival thing where you have to survive or protect the ruler of Rouston.
Yes, the Pontifex, the Rachel's dad. And you have to survive 13 rounds. Feels a little bit too long to me, but this is a cool mission. It is one of the only explicitly defensive missions in the game. There are only a handful of these.
Yeah. Yep. There's a real silly thing. So the Renfield guy's name is Riev.
Yes.
And where he punks a guard. He does the Millhouse and the camouflage. Like, I'm over here, but am I over here?
Yeah.
To him initially. And it was very funny.
Yeah.
And the reason why he wants to, we didn't talk. So Valter, his motivation was that he likes evil.
Yeah.
He's an evil merc who loves victory and battle. Riev was kicked out of Rouston.
Right.
He was basically kicked out of the church, and he's here to get his revenge and become the right hand man of the Demon King.
Mm-hmm. Displace the Pope.
Yep.
Yeah. So
this is frighteningly late, but this is the first time I found a secret shop.
Oh yeah.
In the game, there's secret shops. They're just tiles. If you stand on them, you get a menu command that just says secret.
That is such an NES, it is an NES ass mechanic.
Yeah, it's real weird. So they're sometimes they're good, but they're never amazing.
Right.
So
yeah. But one more stone saved, one more set of ancient weapons. I stopped taking note of them, but eventually here, you get the ones that are good for your main characters. You get your lance, you get your sword, stuff like that. Most of my dudes were completely outfitted at this point.
Yeah. The big thing, the rapier you get is called Sieglund here, which is super good. And then you also get the staff, Latano, which is the 3-use staff that heals your whole map. Oh, yeah. Heals all your guys. So this is super useful to have right before the final chapter of the Darkling Woods. 3
heals, 2 more missions left.
Yep.
It's good. Yeah. So, Chapter 20, the Darkling Woods. Our last step here is to go to the Black Temple in the Darkling Woods. This is where Lion is performing the ritual. And man, after Final Fantasy V, there's just an awful lot of Mirkwood going on. We have the site where the Demon King was killed and his blood soaked into every reed, corrupting the place.
Yeah. Yep.
And there's a cool guardian here. We've got Morva, this dragonkin, who was the one who defeated the Demon King last time, who's kind of here posted up, acting as guard. He is actually Myr's foster father. He tries to talk Lion out of his madness, saying, "Hey, you know what? Like, I don't want to have to kill you, dude. So if you cannot," and then Lion doesn't not.
And Lion wins handily.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah. Lion says, "No, I can control it. It's fine." He can't control it. It's not fine. In fact, he raises Morva as a zombie dragon to guard the temple while he is in there doing his dark rites.
Yep, I misspoke last time. I thought that we fought Riev for the final time last map. It's actually this map. He escapes again. Like, he's escaped like 4 or 5 times.
Yes.
Now we actually fight Riev, in addition to a big undead dragon.
Right.
Which is Morva, who has been created by the Dark Lord.
Tough fight. You have to make yourself really vulnerable to not just Morva, but all of the forces around him.
Yeah, and the way dragons work in this is that they have they always hit, and so the amount of damage you see is what you're going to get. So they have an ability that like bypasses evasion entirely. So it's basically tanks only. Yeah, for them.
That's a good way to approximate breath attacks in this.
Yeah, I think so too. I agree. What else happens here? It's basically just like a big forest map, more monsters. Yeah, I sent Myr against Morva, not just because you have the notes as maximizing cruelty. I just did it because that was my boss killer. Could do a lot of damage and put out a lot of damage on the field. But we have these super weapons now, which do a lot of damage. So it's more about like if you can survive than what DPS you can output. So once you do this, Ephraim, or your main character Erica or Ephraim, seizes the gate to the temple, and we move to the final chapter of the Sacred Stone.
Yes, there's actually 2 parts. So we open up with a flashback, to the last moments of the Emperor's life. I don't know who we're seeing this as. And, he and Lion, they talk about this vision that they had, this great calamity that was coming to the south of the continent where the Empire of Grado is. And they're like, okay, how are we going to deal with this? Lion's like, hey, we have a great relationship with Renee. They'll take us in. And, the Emperor says, no, they would never do that. Nobody would accept refugees. We have to find a way to stop this. And that's kind of the root of what's going on here. Is that, the Emperor passes away. Lion, who has been trying furiously to keep him alive, he ostensibly is looking out for the well-being of his people. If Grado does not have a strong leader, they will never survive the calamity. Yeah.
No. So we head to the temple on the way to Lion, which is full of these Gorgons and zombie dragons. There's 2 zombie dragons. The fan community says this is probably Myr's original parents.
No.
Return to these, which is cool little bonfire-side chatting.
Yeah.
That's having a little lore stirring.
I don't see why not.
I don't see why not either. Yeah. If there's two dragon people unaccounted for, and there's 2 dragons. Why not? When you get to Lion, he starts talking about whether or not he's gotten stronger. Again, just a value that I don't.
I have no sympathy for it.
I have no sympathy for, just like becoming strong, and it's just, I know that it's a big thing in a lot of like animes and stuff.
It just has to be like, there has to be another word for it. There has to be more nuance for it to pop up as much as it does.
Yeah.
I know that I always give a benefit of the doubt on the translation, but I have
it's
not
to. A poorly translated game. It seems like a really well translated game.
Yeah.
Actually,
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It just doesn't sell it.
No,
good enough for me. I don't think the character is deep enough.
Yeah.
For me. So Lion dies. And as he dies, you ask whoever kills him, like Erica or Ephraim, to smile there. But then the Demon King shows up.
Yeah.
And La Rachel has the last sacred stone, and they literally do like the power of friendship.
Yeah.
Like he asks all the people and everyone who survived praise. So everyone says a bark according to their one character trait.
Yep.
Like, this was actually really irritating to me because it was like I generally like a let's round up and have just a revisit of all the characters we've seen, like end of Link to the Past kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it was just, since a bunch of these characters I had not spent a lot of time developing supports for, it was just like, someday, when I first met Ross, he's like, well, someday I'll be as strong as my father. And then now at the end of the game, he's like, Father, I hope I made you proud. And I'm like, man, give somebody more than just a one-dimensional character line. These are a lot of archetypes.
Yes.
And there's nothing really wrong with that, but it's like, it's really underlining it to just have everyone just say their statement.
Yeah.
Don't
lean on it. Don't highlight it. It can just exist and be fine as long as attention is not called. Go ahead.
It reminds me a lot. There's like a Michael Cooperman comic that's like Public Domain Adventures, and it's Dracula and Hercules, and like Hercules is like, well, I'm gonna go do some trials, and Dracula says, "Sounds good. I'm gonna go suck some blood." And like that's the cover, and it just like it makes you think of that. Like, we got one thing we do. Let's go do it.
I had a really funny interaction here. So I had Loot say her line, which is, I can't wait to go back to my studies or whatever. And the next person to speak was Rachel's Berserker guy. I forget his name. And
Dolbus or something.
Yeah, Dobis. And so Lute says, I can't wait to go back to my studies. And then Dobis chimes in and says, haha, me too. because his just like whatever he said, like whatever the person says before, he just co-signs it, which is really fun. I just like the idea that Dobis is unsatisfied with the life of being a berserker, and he's going to night school.
I think that's very funny. I think I got them in a different order than that. I think that there's like you don't get them in. It might be a randomized order.
Yeah.
So, but it's a lot of like, we're with ya. Never give up the fight. Magic will prevail.
Attaboy.
With a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'll show you the honor. A lot of that, and I find it deeply irritating. So I don't know.
Yeah. But this starts the final boss fight against the very large Demon King, which you just have to surround and kick. Like, it's not that big of a deal. He summons some monster helpers. He has like a weirdly out of style, or an off model battle sprite for when he attacks you. Like, he's rendered like with a different level of detail, like everybody else has, like a super cool, like clean outline kind of look, and he looks like a 3D render that's been Donkey Kong Country into a little
the
bit,
game. Yeah. He's also huge. Like, he is the background and stuff, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
But it's not my favorite art style in the game. And the way that turn economies work in like a lot of strategy games is like any single target foe is going to be pretty easy. Especially here at the end, and like, imagine the delight that I have where I don't care if characters die. So this was as easy as it could possibly get. But you take him out. He's not too hard. Then we beat the game.
His soul has been sealed within the final remaining sacred stone, and his body is dead.
Yep, and that's what we need. So then we get these little pieces of dialogue that everyone gets, kind of our roundup. Yeah. It's over, isn't it? Yes, I suppose it's over. We must relay the news.
Yes. Now it is time to rebuild. Now it is time to go back to our lives. Yeah. Different relationships will have different endings if you advanced their supports.
Mm-hmm. Yep. A lot of people get married.
Yeah. Like Joshua and what's her name? Natasha.
Yeah. Yep. So if you built up those supports, they get married, and that's kind of the seeds of the explicit eugenics that you do in the later Fire Emblem games. Those are not dating sims, or those are more dating sims than this is. But this one definitely has that romance subplot. It's just a subsystem as opposed to a main system.
Yeah.
And then that is the end.
We get our epilogues.
Yep. For every character, where they go. Ephraim, leaves Renai for Grado because there's a big landslide. So it's like we're going to be really busy. They talk about how it'd be great to relax, but we actually have to start rebuilding after this huge tragedy. Yeah, and you get credits where you see these little kind of hyper detailed, really attractive sprite arts of different scenes from the game.
Into it
for the credits, which I really like. And then you get a little rundown of all the levels that you've done.
The number of turns that the game took for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. and yeah, just find out what happened to everybody. And it's, it's okay as an ending. The end of this game left such a bad taste in my mouth that it's like, and I know we scooted through it pretty quickly, which might be disappointing to some people. Like, this episode's already pushing 4 hours. I was really ready to be done by this, that a lot of the coolness of, the feeling of that epilogue or anything did not really work on me.
Yeah.
And not just because it's not that long of a game. It's not because of the length. It's just because of here's Gorgon eggs. Here's a Revenant fight. Here's just stuff that just felt like kind of a waste of my time.
Yeah.
Really long battles. Like we went through these very quickly. Some of these battles are as long as a game of Into the Breach. Like they're like 45 minutes or an hour.
Yeah.
It's huge maps with, just this map has 7 waves of reinforcements. Mm-hmm. Like without blinking an eye.
Yeah.
Like I don't think the pacing of this game is very good.
No.
And it suffers more at the end as, you're being shown new goals and new plot tidbits with less frequency than you were earlier in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about this, and we ascribe a lot of motivation to decisions like this. Kind of the standard line would be to say, like, it kind of shows a lack of confidence that, like, hey, we need this to be massive. It doesn't matter if not all of it's good. It just more is better than. And yeah, just like it starts out very coherent, but it loses that and becomes like mushier and looser as it goes on. By the time you were in that middle section, it is mostly incoherent, and you get cool like little micro stories, but it just kind of shambles. And when things get back on the same track, you end up with kind of just a really cliche story.
It's a weird story with lots of words, but doesn't end up feeling very complicated.
Yeah. And
it ends up being a very strange story because there are a lot of moving parts, like all of the stuff with like the possible Carcino rebellion and things like that I experienced on my half were like interesting. Like there's like, oh, that's like kind of an interesting idea that there's this like this merchant city where it's like ruled by this council. And one member of the council attempts a coup and we get caught up in it. Yeah. But the stakes are all wrong. Like it's the kind of thing where that plot element would work really well in a TV show or something where like we'd get dialogue and become invested in those characters. But I didn't get invested in Pablo. Like I don't care about Pablo. There's no performance aspect there. Like the writing is above average, but he's not particularly interesting. So some of that stuff, it just started like failing on me as the game went on. And part of it is definitely just that pacing letting up and being more frustrated with the mechanics and the challenge increasing in a way that I didn't think was like, because I tried to roll with punches. I was unable to roll with every punch though, because if I lost a very powerful unit, it's like, well, I don't want to train him up. Yeah. Like you said. So just more time repeating myself, more time resetting and stuff. And I just, I didn't come away from it like really liking it. Like I think the first third of it is good. I think it really it had me and it lost me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like it has like there are moments and constituent parts that I'm really, really into that I like quite a bit. And when I think about them isolated in a vacuum, I have a lot of good, I have a lot of affection for it. But yeah, taken as a whole. And you can talk, you could even put that into the context of like the mechanics as well. Like the battles in this are fun. You're making really neat tactical decisions kind of at the micro level. It's just when when you try to take it to scale, they scale it to a point that doesn't feel as satisfying to me. And even all of those narrative and character moments, I don't know, like Lion just isn't that interesting for me. Again, he's got, detractors and he has really, really ardent defenders, but the idea of the Demon King or whatever, whenever something like that happens in this, any kind of genre fiction like this, I desperately want them to like stick with the good human level, like consequence that is infinitely more interesting to me than like, oh, the evil's going to escape and take over the world. Like the idea that this force uses grief as its wedge to get in is super good. And they do cool stuff with it. See that chapter with Orson. That's not what it stays about. Yeah. like you have a good idea, use it. Don't just surpass it. Right. And make it about being strong enough to save to save the kingdom. It doesn't have to reach that scale. Yeah. Because you erode away, you efface that detail to where it doesn't show up anymore.
What would have been very cool is almost, a smaller scale story, which is something that we harp on. And to be fair, that's not the series. Yeah. this series is about kingdom machinations and stuff.
Right,
but
right.
I think media that successfully does kingdom machinations shows us that you do that. You explain the large by showing the small.
Yeah.
You imply these big things. And by the end of this, I was so disconnected from every aspect of it.
Right.
Like, I don't particularly like Erica. I don't particularly like Ephraim. I don't particularly like Lion. I think La Rachel is okay.
Yep.
I think that character actually gets a little bit better after you learn that she's not just like here to do dumb skits for you. I think Myrrh is actually kind of good. There's a part where Myrrh comes back. And because Myrrh never we didn't mention this, but Myrrh never tells you, like, when she's going to go find her foster father, her master, she just says, no, he left and he sends his blessings. Like, she doesn't tell us that he's the one who turned into the zombie dragon.
Right.
It's like kind of deft. Like, that's good storytelling and stuff. But I'm so disconnected from the majority of it. And at this point, that's so little of my experience in the play, which is just one of the weird things about playing this the way that I feel is intended without resetting is it made me very conservative.
Yeah.
And I tend to be a conservative player of things in general. Like, I am the person who gets through, a day at like Event Crawler or what have you, or like Dishonored, and I always am topped off on items because I scour everything for them and I'm very careful, but it just got boring to play at a certain point. Like, the battles even in the end were not super fun for me. And part of it is that context being missing, and part of it just being like, well, I don't want my guy to die in one hit from a dragon, so I'm going to spend a lot of time just really, really like plinking this guy down or trying to find a way to do it where I can avoid that consequence, as opposed to the alternative, which would be diving in and then reloading, which also feels unsatisfying to me. So I kind of felt just kind of trapped between different ways to play, all of which were not very fun for me. So it didn't give me, I think this is the goodbye for me with classic Fire Emblem. Like, I will play some of the new ones again, I'm sure. I'm not hungry for it now because it's left a bad taste in my mouth, but someday we'll play Three Houses. I'll play the follow-up to Awakening that people liked. I might replay Awakening, but I think that classic Fire Emblem, for reasons just said and reasons at the beginning of the podcast, not for me.
Yep.
So.
And that's fine. I'm good with that. I am surprised at how much I dug the story and characters and stuff like that is very pleasant for me. As like we said, my cooldown is probably going to be a little bit shorter than yours, but yeah, classic Fire Emblem. I'm just very interested to see how they evolved, to see how they don't continue to step on these rakes.
Yeah. I come away from games sometimes thinking that I'm going to play other ones in the series, and then I never do because I play other games that we're doing for the show.
Oh, it's a running gag on the show at this point.
Yeah. I basically, it doesn't, even if I was like, I'm really hungry for this again, it doesn't, I'm probably not going to play it.
Right.
It's just like I'm playing other stuff instead. And that's okay. It's all okay.
Yeah.
So, big thanks to Ben.
Yeah, thank you,
for
Ben.
this. Hopefully our negativity did not, don't feel that reflects on you at all. And if you're a fan of this series, it's okay for it just not to be for some people.
Yeah.
We can only react with the, with the people we are, with the minds we have. We can't pretend to like anything we don't like, or parts of it. And there were things that we did like, and hopefully you feel good about how we called them out, because I definitely made an effort to.
Yes.
Next week, we are talking about Half-Life 2.
Yeah.
It is our premium episode. So if you are a patron at the $5 level, you'll get that full episode. Otherwise, you'll get a preview episode that just covers generalities. In order to hear that whole thing, go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv.
Yes. As of early release, you have a little bit of time, and regular release, I guess. The deadline for responses for any month's games for the Dispatch episode is the 15th of that month. So if you have thoughts about this month's games, which include Gunstar Heroes, Fire Emblem, The Sacred Stones, hey, that's this episode, and Half-Life 2, go to duckfeed.tv/contact and write us in there.
Yeah. And if you have things to say about next month's games.
Yeah. Which
include, I cannot remember the order we're doing these in.
So it is handy? 2018 Call of Cthulhu.
Yep.
Then Silent Hill Shattered Memories. I'm looking forward to that one. I'm looking forward to all these, but
it's gonna be a fun month.
Yeah. The DLC for Resident Evil 7, primarily Not a Hero and End of Zoe.
But we'll talk about the other ones as well.
Oh yeah.
I played that escape room one. It's really cool.
Oh, it's so good.
So yeah, it's really fun.
I'll also do the dining room VR experience for that too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I'll do a book report on that. And then the premium episode for that month is going to be Alan Wake. Sans the DLC, because you can't fucking make me.
Yeah, I'd heard that people liked that before you came along, and I love that. It's just yeah. I'm really looking forward to revisiting Alan Wake, actually, especially with Control coming out and that being on my radar as something extremely cool to play. The Dispatch episode after Half-Life 2 is when we'll announce November's games. We have things planned out basically for the rest of the year, and it's all awesome. Yeah. So very excited. Thanks everyone who came out to Duckfest.
It was great. I loved it.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super fun. If you happen not to make it, if you go to Duckfeed.tv/duckbundle, we have packaged up all the recordings from that, and we are selling them as $10 plus, whatever you feel is fair, for those recordings for about 6 hours of content, and all proceeds go to Races.
Yes, an organization that provides legal services for immigrants and refugees in Texas.
Yeah. So yeah, and the recording qualities on those aren't perfect. Cole did the best he could to fix those up, but we did our best, and we do think they're all listenable, and there's a lot of great content in there. So experience that vicariously.
Because there's nowhere else for this to go. I figured you would be good. You would like to hear this, Gary. On my way back home, I flew Delta because I just picked an airline.
That is cool.
That is cool. Let me tell you about Delta. No, but because most of the flight staffs are in Georgia, based in Georgia. A couple of times on my way back, I got to hear them talk about Ska Priority and Ska Miles.
Scott Miles,
yep.
dude.
So, it is maybe literally why I picked that airline to get my points on.
That's very funny. I like Ska Miles a lot.
I just want to hear Ska Miles. So,
yeah.
You can support us on patreon.com/DuckFeed.tv. That is we both make our living off of this show and the others, and it is thanks to your support that we can do that. You get cool stuff. In the bargain for that, please go check it out if you have not, and if you haven't for a while, consider doing it again.
Yeah, and ratings and reviews are also very useful.
Yeah.
And until next time, what should they watch out for, Cole?
They should watch out for grief, because that's how the devil gets you.
Umbasa.